YouTube and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. Caroline Fenton is here today. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, welcome back.
It is good to be back. It is nice to be back. Ian is here today as well. What's up, Ian?
What up, what up?
So I got to tell you guys something. I was so happy to go on vacation Tuesday afternoon. And, I think a lot of people probably go through this with their own with their own jobs, where, like, when you're right there, like, vacation is right there. You're like, okay, it's time, like this last hour of working time. Now, luckily, we had a little Jared versus Joe, and we're at the Sounds game. We had a good time. But I was so ready to go on vacation.
Last day before vacation is the hardest.
And I was like, there might be a little something here or there, whatever. But the Titans are on break, and the hockey stuff really picks up this week. And I'm sitting there, and I see UCLA and USC to the Big Ten. And I thought, oh, gosh, I'm not on the air, and it's killing me that I'm not on the air. So I'm sure you guys, you and Adam and Ian and everybody else did a fantastic job. But now it's my turn. And Trevor's coming on later today. And I've already been talking to Trevor about all this. Because, this is what I said yesterday, and I hope everybody had a wonderful and happy 4th of July holiday weekend. This is what I said yesterday when I filled in for Pat McAfee on SiriusXM, and it was this. The tradition of college football as we know it, it's over. I mean, college football, essentially, I'm not going to say college football's over, but the grand tradition of it, it's definitely over. I mean, it has been taken over by the money. It is what we cry about when it comes to baseball. That's what's happening to college football. It's a funny story about baseball, but in 1992, Fay Vincent was the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And some of the owners didn't like him. They didn't like him because he would say no to the owners. The tradition of the role of commissioner in baseball was to look out for the best interest of the game. That is also technically the role of the owner or the commissioner of the NFL and all these other sports. But we all know that the commissioners are just puppets for the owners, right? In pro sports.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what it was in baseball was they kicked Fay Vincent out of there. They put Bud Selig, the owner of the Brewers, in, and it was, we're going to take every last dollar possible. That's all we're going to do. And so baseball, for instance, they don't care that my 70-year-old dad, who probably pays like $300 a month on cable in order to watch all the sports in the Braves, is not going to pay for Apple TV in order to watch 8 games a year. But they don't care because it's all about the money. Can we get money from Peacock? Can we get money from Apple TV? If Netflix and Hulu wanted to buy baseball, they would. ESPN Plus, buys hockey now, and got to subscribe to that. And so all these leagues, they're all about taking the money, except the NFL. Because the NFL's like, we're in the driver's seat. We'll do what's for the best of the game. Amazon came up to him, asked for a Black Friday game this year, and truly offered wild card game money, $60 million. And the game they used as the example of we'll take any game was the Titans and the Texans. They're like, we'll take that game. For $70 million, we'll take that game. So college football decided to take the money. That's what this is. The Pac-12 was originally going to make $500 million a year on a new rights deal. Now there's going to be some changes with the Pac-12, which we'll get to in a second. The Pac-12 is going to make $300 million. So those two teams that left last week essentially represent $200 million a year. And so that money's going to the Big Ten.
Two teams are almost half of the deal for the Pac-12.
Yes. Literally 2/3 of the deal.
Yeah.
Or
no.
2/5.
2/5.
2/5. And so that's what it's going to do to the Pac-12. Well, this is going to sound crazy, but do you care about the money? Like the college football money? Do you care about that, you personally?
Well, I don't get the money, so no, I don't care.
That's what
I don't
this is all
get a
about.
check from college football.
That's what this is all about. And in order to do it, we're essentially going to build 2 super conferences. And don't think these conferences are done, because they're not. Rick Neuheisel was on yesterday with me, and he said, don't think the SEC is going to stop at Austin, Texas. I mean, they're moving further west.
Absolutely not.
So we're going to have to worry about that. But the Rose Bowl now no longer matters, which is the grandest tradition of college football. We're getting rid of that. I mean, the bowl games, which for some reason get massive ratings, half the players don't even play in them, but they get massive television numbers. Are those going to matter anymore? Are those still going to exist? I mean, what are we going to do with the ACC? What's going to happen there? What about basketball? I mean, so all these things that are happening with college football, I get why everybody's doing it. What Fox and ESPN are trying to do, and I think they're going to effectively do this, is they want to operate like the NFL. They want to operate where there's a big game at noon, there's a big game at 3, and there's a big game at 7. And you can do that when you add Texas and Oklahoma. And so you get, Oklahoma is going to play LSU one week. Well, that's probably going to be a big game. Mm-hmm. So you can stick that at noon. We still got Alabama playing that week. They're going to be playing Georgia. So we can put that game at 3:30. And USC is playing Michigan. So let's put that game at 7 o'clock. That's what's going to happen. All the other games, all the Vanderbilts, all the Illinois, all the Minnesotas, they're going to be hidden, which is a strength of the NFL from a national viewership standpoint, which is, unlike Major League Baseball or even the NBA or these other sports, they hide the Texans. It's like, think about a game that you would never sit there and say that you wanted to watch. Outside of Thursday Night Football, there are games where the Lions and the Arizona Cardinals.
I mean, Lions and insert whatever team here. Well, I don't want to watch much Lions football.
They would put like an Aaron Rodgers on TV, but yeah.
Yes, but for the most part.
But they're not going to put, for instance, they're not going to put USC versus Rutgers. That's not going to be a primetime game.
No.
That's going to be a hidden game, just like the Lions. That's going to be a hidden game, just like so that's what they're going to do. Well, that's good for TV. That's good for Fox. So they're going to get, 7 million viewers at noon. They're going to get 13 million viewers at 3 o'clock. And they're going to get, probably not 13 million. They'll probably get like 6 million viewers, 9 million viewers. And then probably like 9 to 13 million in the nightcap. And whoever has the best game is going to get, whether it's ESPN, ABC, or Fox, they're going to have the lion's share of the audience. And you're going to have 2 different pregame shows. The Fox pregame show will be at whatever the big Fox game of the week's going to be. And the big ESPN, whatever the SEC game's going to be, that's where College Game Day will be. Well, that ruins a tradition too, because College Game Day for forever has always gone to the best game. So we're ruining that tradition of college football. What it really is turning into is, if you like your team, and your team is one of the really good teams, then you'll be okay. So if you're, and I don't know if they're going to kick some of these schools out of, like, looking at the Big Ten, for instance.
There's some gross schools in the Big Ten.
Do we really need Iowa?
I like Iowa.
Do we really need Minnesota?
Well, I mean, I think you're naming off some schools that deserve a little bit more credit, at least in terms of football. I mean, I look more so at Rutgers or Indiana or Northwestern schools that's just cutting the dead fat.
I'm not even asking you about them.
I'm
not asking. Right.
That's implied.
I mean, are you running to the TV to watch Minnesota?
No.
I mean, even Wisconsin, because, again, these are all about TV markets, supposedly, right? Wisconsin wins some games. I'll give them that. But, I mean, what's the big – Milwaukee? That's the big TV market here?
No, but I guess the Midwest as a whole.
Well, if I'm doing this for the money, I'm taking Stanford in San Francisco or Cal in the Bay Area. I'm taking that over Wisconsin.
But what's more exciting, let's say, Stanford, Rutgers, or Wisconsin, Rutgers? I would say Wisconsin, Rutgers.
I don't know the answer because I don't know what they care about anymore. Before, in the last time, it was obvious. It was all about TV markets. It was the SEC doesn't have the Texas market, and they're going to launch a cable channel, and so they want all the cable providers to pick up that channel in Texas. So what do? You go get a team in Texas, and that's what they did. And so if we're talking about TV markets, that's different. That's why the Big Ten got Rutgers and the ACC got Syracuse, because it was like, well, we have to have New York. Except that I don't think anybody in New York gives a rat's ass about Rutgers.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think anybody anywhere cares about Rutgers. I don't know why Rutgers got such a free pass. At least Vandy got a freaking, they're grandfathered in this. But I don't know what in the world's going on here. So I don't know what they want anymore. Obviously, big TV markets and good tradition and things like that are what you want, which is what makes USC so obvious because they have both.
Right.
Now, UCLA, I think they had to go with USC and it's LA, but I don't think UCLA moves any football needles anymore.
Not much, no. I mean, I think USC is a much more desirable football team than UCLA is, but it's also in LA. If you're going to take one LA team, why not get both?
Well, here's the thing, though. In order to do this, and I get why Fox is doing it, and I get why ESPN's doing it, and I get why the conferences are doing it, we have nuked the tradition of college football. The actual, like, the tradition, the rivalry games. Did you see the Reddit post from a West Virginia fan over the weekend?
I did not, no.
So West Virginia, and have you ever been to Morgantown before?
I have not.
So it sucks. But those people love the Mountain East.
They love themselves some WVU.
So in the old days of the Big East, they played Pittsburgh every year, the backyard brawl. And that was a huge rivalry. And when Penn State was in the Big East, that was a big rivalry.
Eat blank pit.
And they would play, I want to say, Virginia Tech. That was a big rivalry that they used to have before Virginia Tech moved to the ACC. Well, this Redditor, that's a West Virginia fan, said that when we moved to the Big 12, we were promised, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. This is going to be – and instead it's just a lot of, like, meaningless, not as exciting games. It's West Virginia, TCU. It's Oklahoma State. And they're good teams, but they don't have any rivalries anymore. And the fact that, UCLA is going to play USC once a year, but other than that, UCLA, Nebraska. What rivalry do we have there?
Well, and I do have to say, rivalries in college football fall apart all the time. Texas A&M Texas was one of the biggest rivalries in college football, and Texas A&M left for the SEC. And sure, that rivalry of Texas A&M will still remain, or at least the memory of it. And now, obviously, since Texas joined the SEC, it'll be rekindled. But Texas A&M have new rivals now, and I would say that a lot of young college football fans don't even know that Texas A&M and Texas had such a heated rivalry.
And that's the problem.
Missouri and Kansas used to be a big rivalry,
and they totally nuked
not
it.
anymore.
But that is the problem. Is that?
But college football is still making just as much money as ever, if not more money.
But again,
people still
watch. Do you care about the money?
No, because I don't see the money. But it still exists, and it's still popular. The money wouldn't be there if there wasn't an audience. And I think that's the thing, is this is happening because college football fans love college football so much, and there are so many of them. There are so many viewers. There are so many people that want to consume college football content. So even in a world where a Texas A&M Texas or a Missouri Kansas or a West Virginia Pitt rivalry doesn't exist, people still care and people still watch.
So what it's doing, though, is it's trying to make it like the NFL.
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to do. And Ian, if you can, that Kirk Herbstreit cut of what this is going to look like, what it's doing, like for me with college football, every regular season game mattered because every regular season game you played, if you lost a regular season game, the chances of you winning the national championship or of winning the SEC could go completely out the window. Mm-hmm. Well, now that doesn't matter anymore because the SEC is going to get 4 or 5 teams in the playoff. So now you're marginalizing those games. I think you're right about the fact that the money's there, and the money's there because college football gets good ratings, and it does get good ratings. But the problem is now it's taking those things that were so big, and now it's just totally exiting them out. And it's going to be, again, they're going to try to be like the NFL. Now, they're never going to be the NFL because college football does not play in big cities like the NFL does. And when you're talking about total viewership, getting people in New York to watch is a big deal. Mm-hmm. And the NFL does that. But this is what Kirk Herbstreit said on SiriusXM about what college football is going to be. This was last week when when UCLA and USC announced their move to the Big Ten.
It's going to be the AFC and the NFC of college football. And you have, 4 divisions within each conference? You may have 2 or 3 divisions within each of these Big Ten and SEC conferences. And I think you'll see eventually them go to like a 12 or a 16-team playoff. And it's essentially going to be NFL football on Saturdays. I think that's where this thing's headed before it's all said and done.
And that might be great. I love the NFL. But the tradition of college football, that's over.
What tradition other than rivalries?
Hold that thought. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025, because I think there's two sides of this. And on top of it, not only do I think there's two sides of this, there is one element that keeps getting brought up, and I am having none of it. So we'll get to that coming up as well. And we'll get your college football thoughts in as well. But I got to tell you all, I'm bummed out. I had Rick Neuheisel on yesterday on Sirius, and I asked him what he felt when the news was announced. He played at USC, and he coached at UCLA, and he told me he was melancholy when he heard of the news. That is telling you, like, the old traditional college football. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're rocking and rolling today. Stillman and Company. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. And, of course, we're streaming on the Game Nashville app.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
they're still in good shape to make the playoffs,
and I-840,
players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 1025 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
Race fans, it's the biggest event of the summer, July 9th at Nashville's legendary Fairgrounds Speedway with the SRX Racing Series and Rackney Roofing Masters of the Pros 150. This event will sell out quickly, so get your tickets now at NashvilleFairgroundsSpeedway.racing. The biggest names from NASCAR and Indy Racing like Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Michael Waltrip, Helio Castroneves, Joseph Newgarden, and more. Don't miss this huge event. Secure your tickets today at NashvilleFairgroundsSpeedway.racing.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill? You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% U.S.-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
Jared Stillman.
Football season, and then football season becomes hockey season, and then it becomes draft season, and then it becomes hockey playoff season.
And company.
Maybe this is something to just get people a little bit interested.
It's a matter of not having too many chefs in the kitchen.
Catch Stillman and Company on your drive home. Weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
And I can spot it from a mile away.
Watch live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope.
Tennessee First Lady Maria Lee.
Every year, there are 20,000 children in Tennessee who have been abused or neglected. CASA volunteers provide crucial support in speaking up for these kids and supporting them in their search for a safe, loving, and permanent home. CASA volunteers can be the caring, consistent adult in a child's life who can make all the difference. To connect with a CASA program in your area, go to beforthechild.org.
Brought to you by Tennessee CASA in cooperation with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We want to hear from you.
Thanks for taking the call.
Join the conversation. Call or text at 615-737-1025. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 1025 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Coach Rick Neuheisel's with us. What do you think will ultimately happen to the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12?
Well, they will have written the handbook on why not to do long television deals. Larry Scott did a 12-year deal, and look what turned out. At the time when he signed it, it was kind of a split deal between ESPN, ABC, and Fox. At the time he signed it, it was the best. It was the most lucrative in history. But 12 years later, it not only cost him his job, it's also cost the Pac-12 maybe their most lucrative partners in the Trojans and the Bruins. Jim Phillips is hamstrung right now with a deal that takes the ACC through 2036. And don't think Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and others, North Carolina,
aren't looking at the fine print, seeing if they can get out of this deal and maybe jump to the SEC or something like that. This is all, I'm not going to fall that far behind my competitors, and how do we best take care of ourselves?
There you go. That was Rick Neuheisel on the program. And I would say this, and you know me, I am not one. Corey Curtis texted me and said, "Are you the old man now screaming, get off your lawn and everything else and whatever?" And I'm telling you this right now, I'm not saying, that, oh, change is awful, it's the worst, it's bad, but this is, for me, this is bad. And
I'm
you
kind of
asked the question.
surprised that you're as bummed as you are.
Oh, my God, am I bummed. Now, you asked the question at the end of the last segment, which I thought was a fair question, which is, other than rivalries, what other traditions of college football are being screwed around with here?
Yes.
And I've got a handful of them I want to get to.
Okay.
So here's what, and again, this is all TV driven, and I get why TV is doing it. I'll use baseball as an example. The Yankees played a playoff game a couple years ago on Fox Sports 1. Now, imagine if the Dallas Cowboys had a playoff game and the NFL said, we're not going to put it on Fox. We're going to put it on Fox Sports 1.
Oh, Gerald would have a heyday.
I mean, the NFL wouldn't let them do it. I mean, it just would never, they wouldn't even ask, and it would never be discussed. And I'm not saying that baseball is as popular as football. I'm not saying that. But every playoff game until the NBA Finals for basketball, for the most part, is on cable. And so for me, that's a big deal for the NFL that they keep it on broadcast television and they keep playoff games there and everything else. That's important. Well, to me, the CBS game of the week at 3:30 is a big deal to me, and it's gone. And now,
well, it's not gone because of the USC and UCLA move.
No, but
it's gone because of a deal that was made. What was that, a year ago, 2 years ago?
And it was made so they could get Texas and Oklahoma in the conference. Like that move was a chess move that led to that, and so now here's what you're going to get, because every week for me growing up, and Mike Slive, the old commissioner of the SEC, Mike Slive, who is much, Mike Slive was a heavyweight, and Greg Sankey is not, but he wanted to be on CBS because CBS has always been the number one network in America, and he wanted the most eyeballs on CBS. Well, that's a big deal to me. And I'm going to tell you, because now that ESPN owns all the games, they could put an ACC game at 3:30, and they could put the SEC, the main game, at night. They could put the main game wherever I want the main game. I want the main game at 3:30 on Saturday.
Well, how many times has the best SEC game of the week gone to the ABC primetime game? So
very rarely.
Not really, no.
I want to say the last time that happened, like the true best game where that happened, was maybe 2014 or 15, I think it's 14, where the Iron Bowl ended up going to ESPN because CBS had maxed out on the amount of times they could pick Alabama. They had to choose between number one Mississippi State and Alabama or the Iron Bowl, and they ended up choosing number one Mississippi State versus Alabama.
Well, and also there's a CBS primetime late night game. There's that one game every year that there's a 3:30 primetime game, and I also believe it's a 7 o'clock primetime game.
They do the doubleheader, and they used it on Notre Dame that one year, and then the Alabama-LSU game wasn't moved to the night because yes.
And also, honestly, I think this might be a little bit of bias just because I'm a fan of a school whose games are almost exclusively played at night. I think the best game of the day should be played at night. I would hate it if I was a Big Ten fan and the best game of the week and I was an Ohio State fan was almost always played at noon. That to me is awful. I don't feel like good football games should be played in the middle of the day, at least college football games.
You know what the highest rated college football game was last year?
Probably a 2:30 game.
Nope. Ohio State, Michigan
at 11 a.m.
15.9 million viewers.
Which
is more than a World Series game or an NBA Finals game.
Well, I'm not arguing that people don't watch early games. I just have a viewership preference of games at night. I like games at night. I think that the best games should be played once the sun goes down.
So, again, you may get your wish. However, whatever the data ends up telling ESPN and ABC what to do, that's probably what they're going to do. But that takes away from the tradition that I like, which is the 3:30 SEC game. Another thing you're going to have is, and I go back to the last round of conference expansion. Because it's easy right now to say, USC, Michigan, that's going to be a great game. Or Texas versus LSU, that's going to be great. Or outside of A&M, has any school in the last round of expansion, so I'm talking about the 2011, it kind of started in 2011, 2010, when Nebraska and Colorado left the Big 12. Nebraska went to the Big 10. Colorado went to the Pac-12. Then A&M left. Missouri left.
They went to the SEC.
The Big East got completely broken up, which I'll get to in a second, of another thing that I don't like. But when all that happened, how many schools have truly, and I'm not talking about dollars and TV markets because I don't know how important it was to get Missouri into the SEC for the Missouri television market, but how many of these schools have really carried their weight, have really earned what they have gotten by jumping to a bigger conference?
Other than A&M, because I think that A&M is the
A&M's
exception
the number
and
one.
not the rule. Because if you can just compare the Missouri and A&M move side by side because they came in together, it's night and day difference.
I've got 4 that I can think of.
Okay.
So, and I'll just go over the ones that haven't. Nebraska hasn't done anything. They have not mattered. Colorado has not mattered. Like, all of these haven't. Rutgers to the Big Ten. Maryland to the Big Ten. Those have not mattered. None of that's mattered. Here's what I think's mattered. A&M's mattered.
Yep.
I think Baylor has mattered.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to give Baylor not only the credit for what they've done in football, but they also won a basketball championship. So you have to say, Baylor is a real Power 5 school. And I think Baylor may be one of the safe schools in all of this when we're talking about, who's going to want what, because they've got the Dallas market, and those things I think are important. But Baylor has carried their weight. Utah into the Pac-12 has carried their weight. And then the 4th team, and only, I don't know if I should, they've gotten close a couple of times, and that's TCU. But I'm not sure they've really broken through anything. Like, TCU and Louisville are the two that...
I don't think it's fair to put TCU and A&M in the same bracket because A&M has carried their weight much more in the SEC than TCU has in the Big 12.
TCU was a lot closer to the playoff, though, than A&M was. Even though A&M was like the 5th team in 2020, they were never going to make the college football playoff. It was because they were not in the SEC championship game in order to win to get in there. But TCU was in that weird 3-way tie in 2014 between them, Baylor, and Ohio State, which got Ohio State into the playoff. And the old man used to get so mad. Ian, you remember this, when I said that when I thought tiebreakers were essentially decided by who TV would want in the playoff, which is why Ohio State got in over TCU and Baylor. And he used to get mad every time and say, well, we're letting TV decide, then we're ruining, the integrity of the game. And
well,
I'm like,
TV's been deciding.
I mean, TV is
That's
deciding.
where the money is.
So the other option I would say is Louisville. I'm biased there, but I would say Lamar Jackson there were some massive games in the 3 years that he was in the ACC. So you could, one or the other, but it's really 3 where you look at it and you're like, yeah, Utah has added to the Pac-12 and A&M has added to the SEC.
A&M is the blueprint.
And Baylor has absolutely added to the Big 12.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, how big of a deal? But what it has done is it absolutely has hurt, and it was the beginning of all this, but the regionalization of the sport, the I hate you because you're my neighbor and whatever, all that kind of stuff. And it absolutely wrecked the best basketball conference in America, which was the old Big East. Not this fake Big East, but the old Big East with Pitt and Syracuse and Villanova and Georgetown, and they would play in Madison Square Garden, and it was, and they got good ratings. I mean, college basketball mattered a lot more around America back then. Maybe it's because we have more options of what to do. And I haven't even gotten to the Rose Bowl when we're talking about traditions in college football. Bowl season has been completely wrecked as far as I'm concerned with all the kids that don't want to play in them and the fact that...
And I don't blame the players who don't want to play in the bowl games. I don't blame them an ounce.
I don't think the demise of college football, if this is where it's headed, because it feels very baseball-like to me.
I don't think it's a demise. I think it's just a change.
His time will tell that.
Yeah.
And again, remember how the Longhorn Network was supposed to be the absolute game changer in all of college sports?
Was it supposed to be?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So ESPN
It's such a non-starter.
So ESPN gave Texas their own network in order to keep them from going to the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. And it was with our own network, we're going to make a gajillion dollars a year, and nobody will be able to keep up with us. And that was the sense. Well, A&M got pissed off by that. That's what led to A&M joining the SEC. Mm-hmm. And the SEC needed, the television market for the cable channel. So they were like, okay. Then they had this TV market for only Texas. Turns out a lot of people don't care about Texas volleyball. And so what are you going to program a TV channel that's all Texas sports all the time? And I'm sure Texas's football team not being very good hasn't helped that out a lot. But that was like supposed to be the Longhorn Network is going to take over. It's going to change everything. It didn't do anything. No. And so we're getting rid of the Rose Bowl because USC and UCLA, we got to have them, we got to. And I'm like, man, like that's what we're doing here. Like and you're right. It may just be a chance. I am not ruling out that you are wrong about, I'm not saying you're wrong. You may 100% be right, and it may just be a change. And maybe it is like the NFL, the way that Kirk Herbstreit says that, it could be the AFC and the NFC with the two conferences, and every day we'll get and this is what TV wants, we'll get, a noon kickoff, which will be the third best SEC game of the day, which could be Auburn versus Georgia. And then we'll get a 3:30 kickoff, which could be the best game of the day, which could be Alabama versus Oklahoma. And then we could get the 7 o'clock, which could be the Big Ten game of the day, which could be Michigan versus USC. And all these games have huge implications. And it's the same as watching football on a Sunday, where you watch the NFL and you got a pretty decent first game, Steelers versus whomever the first game. Then you get the Packers and the Cowboys at 3:30 on Fox. Then you get Sunday night football and it's Brady versus the Eagles and everybody. Maybe that's what happens. But it doesn't feel that way to me. It feels the way to me that baseball felt when they went cable. And it was all of a sudden, now that they've gone, it used to be baseball had one game a week. Then it was they had two on ESPN, and that was the National Baseball. And then they got a game with Fox on Saturdays. Then they got their own TV network. Then they added a Monday with ESPN. Then they got a deal with TBS, and so now you got Monday baseball, you got Tuesday baseball, you got Wednesday baseball, which they've now gotten rid of, but you had Wednesday baseball on ESPN. You had Thursday baseball on the MLB network. You had Saturday baseball on Fox. You had Sunday afternoon baseball on TBS. And you had Sunday night baseball on ESPN. And we can sit there and knock baseball all we want. Football is a $12 billion a year industry. Baseball is a $10 billion a year industry. Baseball is not that far behind football, which is crazy to think because as far as popularity is concerned, it's night and day, right?
Yes.
So baseball's made their money. I mean, baseball has made all the money in the world, and the owners, they love it. But they are wanting to expand because there's all these billionaires that want to own a baseball team because it's so lucrative, because the money is so great. But that leads me to my original question, which is how does the money affect us?
But my thing with baseball is, what's the biggest critique of Major League Baseball?
Too many games.
Well, maybe too many games, but also...
You're going to say it's too slow.
Or not adapting, or not trying to evolve the game, not trying to grow the game. Well, I think that college football is rapidly evolving, is very much so changing with the times. It's just people don't like it with baseball because now it's not as... fun to keep up with now. It's not as intriguing to keep up with now. Well, now college football is changing too much and people want it to go back to the tradition and they don't want it to change. Well, which one is it? Is the problem with college football that it's changing too much, or is the problem with baseball that it's not changing enough? But I don't think it can be both.
So I'll go back to the television ratings on this. The idea about the national championship and everything else or whatever and the TV ratings, and they're going down for college football too. They're not going down like they have for the other sports, but they're not, and they're still second to the NFL.
Right.
But it's not what it used to be in the BCS era, with the amount of viewers that they were having then. Mm-hmm. And to me, to the networks, it's about the viewers for those big games.
Yeah.
It is right now, Fox is selling to advertisers a week in November where they will have the Cowboys on Thursday, They will have USA versus England soccer on Friday. They will have Michigan versus Ohio State on Saturday. And they will have Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. That's what they're selling to advertisers for those one games. That's all they care about. They don't care about the Lions. That doesn't matter to them. But the issue with that is, I think ultimately it's good for the network. It's not good for the sport. And that's what I'm worried is going to happen with college football, especially without all these rivalries. Now, I've talked for a lot. We've talked for a lot. So let's get to your phones on this, 615-737-1025. And maybe I'm wrong, but I am bummed about the future of college football. And there is some news on the Big 12 front that we haven't even touched on. And I got to say, is this a big deal? We'll get to that on the other side. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love those guys. They've taken care of my home for years, and they can do the same for you. My friends at Hiller are celebrating the home of the free all July long with special deals for these great customers. This month only, take advantage of a free whole home surge protector and interest-free financing for 12 months with the purchase of a new whole home generator, free programmable thermostat and interest-free financing for up to 48 months on select new HVAC units, and a free water sensor leak detector. That's a big one right there. A free water sensor leak detector and interest-free financing for 12 months when you buy a new tankless water heater. All these purchases come with a free Happy Hiller Club membership, and you'll want that, and I know that because I'm a member of the Happy Hiller Club. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be Your Services Free guarantee, and these deals are only happening this month in July, so customers have got to call my friends at Hiller as soon as possible. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, call the Happy Face Truck today.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
They're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
and I-840,
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
there's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
This is Chef John from Kitchen Notes at the Omni Nashville. Invite you to come join us for breakfast and lunch. We are offering some exciting new menu items. For breakfast, we have a smoked prime rib hash. Comes with a sunny side up egg, hominy, caramelized onions. It's a great start to your day. We are featuring a sourdough pancake made with a sourdough bread starter. It's a fun spin on the classic buttermilk pancake. As always, Kitchen Notes is serving biscuits all day. Come join us and create a memorable experience here at the Omni Hotel. Food is all about memories for us. We'd like you to start a new memory here at Kitchen Notes in the Omni Hotel.
Breakfast at Kitchen Notes in the Omni Nashville Hotel.
Jump into the thrill at Bally's Evansville Casino. Play to win with lots of slots and live and electronic cable games. Visit the High Limit Room for an elevated experience. Take a break with a cold tap house brew or a snack at the deli. For more elegant dining, check out the flavors, river views, and music at Kavanaugh's. Enjoy a relaxing stay at the Bally's Hotel or the luxurious Legends Tower. Plan your casino getaway at Bally'sEvansville.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Tennessee has lots of buried pipelines, so it's important to know the signs of a leak, like if you smell unusual odors or hear hissing. Ew. See bubbling earth or water, or dead or dying vegetation. Some signs are even harder to miss, like dirt being blown into the air, a frost ball in an open field, or a flame coming from the ground. If you see any of these signs, don't wait. Leave the area immediately and call 911 or your pipeline company. For more tips on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks is so excited to introduce a brand new wing flavor, Hot Honey. They brought the heat with this one, featuring honey, crushed red pepper, jalapenos, and cayenne pepper. It's sweet on the front end with a kick at the end. Get to Twin Peaks to find your new favorite wing sauce.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stone Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, this is Philip Forsberg. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
There's one important element here that could tip the balance, Hannah, And that's the one school that everybody wants, the big whale that the conferences have been going after for as long as you were in school at Notre Dame and I've been watching college football, and that's the University of Notre Dame. Right now, for those who don't follow this like we do, they have an affiliation with the ACC. They're in the ACC in every sport but hockey and in football. In football, they play 5 conference games. The ACC is desperate now to convince Notre Dame once and for all to join the league. If they fail, the ACC will almost cease to exist. And then does Notre Dame stay independent, or does Notre Dame go to either the Big Ten or the SEC? I think everything is currently in play right now.
There you go. That was Feinbaum on ESPN. And I will say this. I think Feinbaum is the one who has been tipping hands the most around here, which I'll get to later. But I think that Feinbaum is in constant contact with probably 2 of the most important players in this, and that's Greg Sankey. And I think he's probably in touch with Jimmy Pitaro, the chairman of ESPN. Yeah. And so there have been some things that Feinbaum has said in the past that have now started to ring true. And I'm thinking that it's because Feinbaum's on I don't say on the take, but I think he's included in the huddle. Notre Dame is the next shoe to drop. I talked to somebody today, an industry source in college sports, that said they don't know what Notre Dame's going to do. And not only that the ACC grant of rights, which is keeping all those ACC schools in the ACC until 2036.
Yeah.
That Notre Dame is technically included in that. And that their 5 football games a year are included in that. Now, they don't know to what extent, the source I talked to doesn't know to what extent Notre Dame's rights are in there.
I have to think it's different than whatever Clemson or Florida State or any other ACC schools are tied to. But I think it'll be interesting because I don't think that Notre Dame is going to budge unless they have to. And that completely depends on the college football playoff. Does Notre Dame have an advantage or a disadvantage of not being in a conference right now? No, not really, because there's no conference ties to the college football playoff as currently constructed. But that's going to change.
Well, if the money that these schools are getting goes from, $30 million a year, because I don't know what NBC's paying for Notre Dame's package.
A pretty penny.
But apparently it's not so much. Like, it used to be that Notre Dame was getting like 8 times, 10 times everybody. That's not the case anymore.
No, not anymore.
So, I don't know.
And that gap is probably shrinking by the second.
So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know any of this. But if they've got 5 games that are tied into that grant of rights, then it's going to be hard for them to leave the ACC. Mm-hmm. And that may keep the ACC afloat. Now, the report today from CBS was that the Big 12 is going to try to take Arizona State, Utah, and what was the other school that they were trying to take from the Pac-12? Colorado. They're going to take them back, apparently. That does not move the needle for me. I don't think that saves you as a conference. I don't think you're the Big 12. You lost Texas and Oklahoma. And I'm sorry. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Arizona State, and Utah is not doing it for me.
Well, not to mention the AAC schools plus BYU that are coming in.
I don't think that saves you.
Those do not fill the hole left by Texas and Oklahoma.
Cincinnati had one good year. That does not, again, that's not losing Texas and Oklahoma and replacing them with Oregon or, one of those kind of level schools.
Yeah.
And Oregon is not a Texas level school, but Oregon's got some juice to it.
It's got some pull.
So I promised phones. So, again, that's the news of the day. I don't even feel like diving in more to that other than at that point, the Big 12, man, they're just trying to stay afloat, and I just don't think it is going to matter.
Well, I don't know if that's a move ushered by the Big 12 wanting to stay afloat or if that's those Pac-12 schools just trying to jump ship and get out and find another home.
I think it's probably it feels like one of those 2 leagues is going to survive, and the other one is going to survive. Technically, because they're going to destroy the other league.
Exactly.
So somebody between the Pac-12 and the Big 12 is going to be the new Big East. And I say this as somebody who is an alum of the old Big East. And so when I see the Big East logo, or I see this basketball tournament at Madison Square Garden, and I see Xavier and Creighton and those crap schools, I almost get offended because I lived in the good Big East. I lived in Connecticut, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Villanova, Pittsburgh, Bob Huggins at West Virginia, Louisville. I'm trying to think of who else was there. It was just such a freaking stacked league, and it was so much fun. And now, again, it's Creighton. So make of that what you will. I promised phones. We're to them next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company right here on 1025 The Game.
Let's put the green flag in the air and turn them loose.
Nashville's home for NASCAR.
He's going to try to make a big move here.
It's brought to you by the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We are your racing station.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Heat index this afternoon, 105 to 110 with isolated storms possible. We do this for the rest of the week.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home's value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it, and you can access it with Loan Pronto. They specialize in zero-cost cash-out home refis. Get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. And yes, VA loans are eligible. With a VA loan, you can access up to 100% of your home's value. So pay off high-rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut about $800 or more from their monthly budget. So if your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
At Mitchell's Mr. Transmission, we also offer free towing with any major repairs. If your vehicle has a breakdown and you should need any type towing is available through Dad's Towing Service. Dad's is a professional towing company in Nashville that provides all types towing and recovery, 24 hours a day.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
312 Pizza Company is Nashville's authentic Chicago pizzeria, and they're now hiring. Work for a family-owned business and be a part of their incredible team. 312 Pizza Company is hiring for all positions, including host, waitstaff, bartenders, cooks, and more. 312 Pizza Company offers health insurance and paid time off to full-time employees. Contact Kimberly at 615-730-7888 or email at contact@312pizzaco.com. 312 is an equal opportunity employer.
Darren McFarland.
I feel like we're a better playoff team.
Willie Donick.
You're in a window of a division you can win.
Chase McCabe.
I'm not signing him for more than $1 million.
The DDC. Weekdays from 10 to 2.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
on ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
For those programs that are left behind right now, 10 schools in the Pac-10, they're thinking on two different wavelengths. One is how do we best protect the future of what our conference will look like, and that means expanding to other schools, maybe like an SMU or a TCU out of Dallas because it's such a lucrative market, getting into another time zone. And they're also thinking individually, how do I get myself, if I'm Oregon or Washington or Stanford or Cal, into one of these big boys?
There you go. That was Rick Neuheisel. By the way, I said Neuheisel played at USC and coached at UCLA, and I've had 3 people that have texted me to say he played at UCLA. I thought that too. When I hosted the show yesterday, he said that he played at USC.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Like, he literally said, because I'm sitting in the same seat I was sitting in now, yesterday on Sirius XM, and I'm, talking to Coach Neuheisel, and I was like, Coach, what are your thoughts? And he's like, yeah, I played at USC, and I'm really melancholy about XYZ.
Did he play both? In both?
I looked up his Wikipedia. It says he didn't.
His college football reference page just says UCLA, 2 years.
I'm telling you, he told me that he played at USC.
No, his Wikipedia, it says UCLA.
I know.
Maybe he's wrong.
How?
I don't know.
So I want to apologize to everybody. I mean, but I swear.
Are you sure?
I swear to God, he said it. I listened to the.
Or does he mean like he played a game at USC when he was playing at UCLA?
I don't know. I know this. I did the interview. So when I was doing the interview, I listened to the interview. Then I listened to the interview again today to find, the cuts that I wanted to cut for us to talk about on the show. And as I was cutting, I had to listen to the interview again. So I heard the interview 3 times. And each time I thought he said he played at USC. Yeah, I guess I'm wrong. Phone lines are driven by WillScottyHunter.com. We haven't gotten to them until 50 minutes into the show. I apologize for that. But I had a lot to say. What do we have on our text line?
One texter texts in and says, how can you say A&M is the only one pulling their weight among expansion teams? They haven't won anything. They've been to 0 SEC championship games. Mizzou has been to 2 and was a top 5 team in 2013.
Thumbs down.
I kind of have a feeling that this is a Missouri fan, and I hear this all the time from all of the Missouri fan friends that I have. Missouri went to the SEC championship twice. I understand that, and I want to say it was their 2 first years in the SEC. But I think that Missouri was also just a benefactor of the SEC East beating up on each other.
I'm going to ask a question to everybody on the show right now. Who was Missouri's starting quarterback last year?
Was it Bazelak?
Ian?
I would have no idea.
I have no idea either. It might be that guy.
I think it was Connor Bazelak.
But I have no idea. And my point being is that nobody gives 2 poops about Missouri football.
And the fact that Texas A&M has been able to establish itself as a serious SEC West powerhouse, and Missouri is just like a whatever.
If we had to draft out the college football schools, like if everybody became a free agent today, like there are certain schools that would, I hate to break it to Vanderbilt, but they're not making the cut. If we started again today it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to go there. But, if we started today in college football, Vandy's not in the top conference.
No.
Rutgers is not getting a pass. Illinois is not getting a pass. We already went over this earlier today, but all these schools aren't getting a pass. A&M is going to be in the top league. Like if this were, isn't it soccer? Like the European soccer that kicks teams out of leagues and adds teams in leagues. Like if you stink it up.
Because they just established that big super, I say conference, I know it's not a conference, but the Super League. And
and people were really mad about that.
Yeah, they were very, very mad about that.
I hate soccer.
But I think it's the buy-in. Like, let's just look at Mizzou and Texas A&M together. It's the buy-in from the fan bases and the tradition of the fan bases. And that's
not even close between those two.
Oh, yeah, nobody cares about Mizzou football. Nobody cares.
Connor Bazelak is correct.
Hey, way to go,
2
Caroline.
points for me.
Yes.
Thank you very
She got
much.
the Missouri quarterback. You know what's sad?
Woohoo.
Is that like I probably have like one of the more popular, if not the most popular shows in the city of Nashville. I do not know Vanderbilt's quarterback. Kenny Seals?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so then I did, but still. But again, like, so for instance, Tennessee.
But they don't give you a reason to know.
Tennessee
want to know.
Tennessee hasn't done diddly crap in 20 years in football.
Save.
And with that, Tennessee would still be safe.
Oh, 100%.
Like if we were starting over again. Now, Mississippi State, I'd be a little worried about.
Questionable.
I'd be a little worried about.
But that's why I always go back to, and everyone's saying the tradition is dying in college football. I agree with you in that the matchups or that the historic bowl games,
Rose
those
Bowl.
things are dying. But when you see conference realignment, the teams that will survive are the teams that have buy-in and tradition from their fan bases. Tennessee would be at the top because it's a historic program, and it's because there is so much buy-in and so many finances plugged into Tennessee from its fan
I
base.
completely agree. I think the buy-in of the Rutgers fan base
But that's
has
why it
played
will
a
fail.
humongous role in. I mean,
That's
would you
why
say
it will fail.
Would you say the Big Ten picking up Nebraska, Rutgers, and Maryland has failed?
No.
So if anything, they've succeeded by taking the crap schools that nobody cares
super
about.
conference that's formed, do you think Rutgers is going to be involved?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Why?
They're not kicking teams out of conferences.
Well, you just said if there was a super conference, Vanderbilt would not get a seat at the
I said
table.
if we started over.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, we're going to have 2 super conferences. Like the Big Ten and the SEC. Vanderbilt is going to be in the super conference, which is crazy.
But if we started over,
they would not be.
Because nobody cares.
Rutgers might. It might be what got them in there the first. This is New York, and we got to have New York. What else we got?
Michael Texan says a lot of tradition is dying, but that being said, there's a chance with super conferences to recreate some of the history that's been lost if they do it right. For example, old Big 12 matchups in the SEC like Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah, but there's also a lot that you're losing, right? So you'll have Texas. Like, let's use Oklahoma as an example. Oklahoma is a proud college football program.
Yeah.
And maybe they make new rivalries, but A&M, they don't really have a rival in the SEC. Now, Texas is in there, but if you were to say, okay, who's A&M's biggest SEC rival, they would tell you Alabama. But where are they on Alabama's list of rivals?
Probably
like
fourth.
Ninth, something like that. Because Alabama has built up so many years of rivalries. They haven't played a competitive game with Tennessee in forever, and Tennessee is a bigger rival to Alabama than Texas A&M is.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma, who had, one of the greatest rivalries with Nebraska that ended a decade ago, that's gone. Oklahoma State, Bedlam, that's gone. And so they'll still have the Texas rivalry, but I think the idea of rivalries, it's like the NFL.
New rivalries get created every year.
See, I disagree.
Why?
Because I've been a fan of an NFL team for 20 years, and I would say that the best rival the Titans have might be the Ravens. And honestly, like the Ravens, we're probably like ninth talking about the Titans.
But I think NFL rivalries and college football rivalries are very different.
But that's what this is becoming.
I don't think.
So in the old days of the old NFL, so the NFL and the AFL and the whatever, like the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington now Commanders and all those were the rivalries. Those teams hated each other. Tex Schramm was the general manager of the Cowboys, and they wear white. They're the one team that wears white at home all the time. So all the NFC East teams would always wear their away jerseys at home to make the Cowboys wear blue because it would piss the Cowboys off.
Right.
That's a rivalry.
Yeah.
Like, that's a we want to shove it to you, we hate you.
I think that still happens.
I just don't think that outside of the NFC East, how many true rivalries are there in the NFL? The big games are who's ever good playing whoever's good. And again, to your earlier point, maybe that will be good for college football. I'm just not totally convinced that it will be. And I would use the last round of conference realignment as what I would point my finger at as to why I feel like it hasn't worked out. I do want to get back to your phones on this, but then again, everybody's made money, so maybe everybody's happy. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I do want to get back to your phones on this, so we'll circle back on this. But the Predators made a huge acquisition over the weekend, and I thought it sent a really clear message, and I'm not sure I've heard anybody talk about this message, so I want to get to that coming up next. Right here on Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
Heads up. 106.3 FM is a new way to hear 102.5 The Game from downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and on I-24 to Murfreesboro.
Make sure you have that preset on your radio dial.
We're making it even easier to listen to Nashville's best sports talk.
This is going to be awesome. It's like, yes.
Tune in to 106.3.
That's what makes this team better.
And hear the difference.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Calling a criminal defense lawyer or a divorce lawyer, you may think it's the worst day of your life. It doesn't have to be. If you have quality, competent representation who can guide you through a complex system, we can do that for you. Despite if you've been arrested for a DUI or a robbery charge, whether or not you're going through a divorce or a post-divorce, or demanding your fundamental constitutional right to parent your children. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
If you suffer from joint pain from arthritis or an injury, you know the traditional treatments, pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's
249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
Listen to Stillman and Company with me, Caroline Fenton, all season long on ESPN 102.5 The Game for your chance to win Nashville Sounds tickets courtesy of 312 Pizza Company in Germantown.
This is a big month for some of our teammates at Cromwell Media. At 102.5, 106.3 The Game, producer Kenny Adams is celebrating a 10-year anniversary. Also at The Game, morning show producer Michelle Knezovic and part-time producer Nick Keyser are both crossing the 1-year mark. At 102.9 The Buzz, Eric Steele, our rock star evening host, and Andy Herron, a part-time host, have been with us for 8 years. We are Cromwell Media and proud of our employees who commit themselves to excellence every day. Want to join our team? Contact us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
NASCAR is back. Kyle Larson returns to Nashville Speedway a winner.
Nashville's exclusive home for NASCAR.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
The leading receiver.
Awesome game 7. Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury. He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. We got to give a shout out
to
David Poyle. Shout out to David, because what did we say?
Good work, David.
What did we say when they signed Jeremy Lazon to that ridiculous 4-year contract?
No more bad players.
Okay, so the Predators made a trade in which undoubtedly 3 players were traded, 2 from the Predators, 1 from the Lightning, and the Predators did, without a shadow of a doubt, they got the one good player.
Yeah, they did.
So Ryan McDonough is coming to the Predators, and let me say this. He's a good player.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of thoughts from this, and I'm just going to lay them out there because Saturday, I talked to somebody that knows Ryan McDonough pretty well, and, I mean, he was just all about Ryan McDonough. He's the best guy, and he's just a great player, and he's a great leader. And I'm going to say this. If you're going to be captain of the New York Rangers, you probably have some thick skin.
Yeah.
Like, you probably, have dealt with a lot of stuff in your life. So, Ryan McDonough, I mean, he's old, but he plays defense, and he's a defensive defenseman, so he's not one of these guys like P.K. Subban who's going to get fat and not be good anymore. I mean, he's a pro. He's good. He's it's a nice addition. And the Predators got him for a couple of just pieces of nothing. They were able to acquire him because Tampa was one of the 8 teams in the league that has absolutely no cap space.
Yeah, it was a salary move.
So the Predators were able, and Tampa admitted it, that it was a salary dump.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this until I heard the Midday Show play this clip earlier today. But I couldn't get over this fact because just reading the quotes from Ryan McDonough as far as what the Tampa people were saying. Now, I didn't hear his press conference that he did as far as with the Predators.
I heard bits and pieces of it.
I'm sure it was all like, I'm really excited. This is going to be a really good team. We're really
saying,
focused
I wanted to go
on-"
somewhere competitive, and I believe
Sure.
Nashville can be competitive. Yeah.
The same old.
Yeah.
But it sounded like he was pretty much kicking and screaming on his way out the door at Tampa.
I don't blame him.
I don't either. But I kept wondering, how could a guy who has a no trade clause, why would he have to say yes? They come to him and say, hey, man, your salary's too much for us. We just can't do this. And it's like, well, I'm staying. I never understood it until I found out the difference between no trade and no movement. No movement is you can't move the guy at all.
Mm-hmm.
No trade is you can't trade the guy. So he had a no trade, not a no movement. So what was going to happen was they were going to waive him, and Columbus had already was going to put in a claim. So they told him, you're either going to Nashville or Columbus, and he chose to come here. Now, couple thoughts on this. First off, there's a huge message that comes from the Predators with this, which is as incomprehensible as it feels after having watched the Colorado Avalanche series and seeing the market and knowing that you're not just going to be able to acquire Austin Matthews or you're not going to be able to swing a trade for Connor McDavid. I felt like there was nobody out there that could make this team a legitimate contender with the Colorados with 1 or 2 trades or 1 or 2 free agent signings or anything of the like. And I still believe that. But they have told us the opposite. They have told us that they do think a couple of guys here and there and this group going forward can compete with the Colorados. Again, it's just a difference of opinion. I kind of thought they were not exactly being forthcoming when it came to that. I kind of thought it was like, we just want to do this. We want to tell you all this, not because we believe it, but we want to tell you this because we all want you to buy tickets. And we want you all to be excited for the season, and so we're going to tell you we think we can compete, but deep down inside, we kind of know. And that's what I thought. And maybe it's true, and maybe the playoffs is the only thing that the ownership cares about, and so, they want to make the playoffs, and you will – I have a hard time believing if the 3 defensemen that are already on the team, if they stay healthy, I have a hard time believing this team and the goalie, they won't make the playoffs because Forsberg's going to come back. So they got this guy, and I think it's a fair deal, and I think, it's 4 more years. Yeah, he's old, but he's a good player. That's the first thought. The second thought is I think they're done on defense because I think that he's going to play with either Yossi or Ekholm on one of those top pairs, and whichever pair he plays on with that guy will be your best defensive pair because he's your best defensive defenseman. So I think that he will play on one of those top pairs. And, the third pair, I don't care about the third pair. Those are always a pair of Scarbinis and just throw anybody out there and just let them get out there. And so to me, Fabro's got to be the 4th guy. Now, I don't think Fabro's that good. And I have many a time been frustrated at his lack of being good, but he should be able to be the 4th guy. It should be Yossi and McDonough and Ekholm and Fabro, or Yossi and Fabro and Ekholm and McDonough. I don't care. But those should be your 4. Forget about Carrier. We'll get to him in a little bit. But that should be your 4, and that should be fine. Like that, it's not as good as what you had in 2017, 2018, but it's good. Like that, those are 3 good defensemen, and Fabro who needs to get good or else he's never going to make it in this league. And that should be fine. The third thing is on this that, as crazy as I think this sounds, and I'm looking at whatever they're going to do and everything else, I can't help but have been frustrated for an argument that I got in with every single person who covers this team from 2 years ago. And that is when they traded for McDonough. I was talking to somebody in the organization, and they were just so pumped. Now, they get pumped over Cody Glass, so they get pumped over whatever. And look, they traded, I'm not even going to say traded ponies for a horse. I mean, they traded, what's worse than a pony?
I don't even know. A baby pony?
Like a donkey?
Like a mule?
They traded a couple donkeys, and they got a really good player in return. So they should be excited. But they're just so excited about McDonough and the addition and yes and defense and And so I'm on my phone. I'm on a plane, and I'm on my phone. And I'm looking, at McDonough, and I was looking at his stats and everything else. I see shoots left. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yossi shoots left.
As does
Ekholm. Well, didn't 2 years ago in the playoffs, didn't they play Ben Harper and Eric Goodbranson over Dante Fabro? And when I was like, it looks like they don't believe in Dante Fabro very much. And then I asked David Poyle about it. Oh, we believe in Dante. I asked John Hines about, we believe in Dante. And I love Adam. This coach wants to do it. That was the excuse, and everybody took up on it. You're going to put Ryan McDonough on the 3rd pair?
No.
Then you're going to have 2 left shot.
Not.
Then you're going to have 2 left shot defensemen together. I thought we cared about left shot, right shot defensemen.
Not anymore.
What? I mean, oh God. So like I said, this is going to sound crazy because the fact that they got a good player, I think is important. The fact that they clearly
veteran player.
They think that they are a re-signing of Forsberg, which is going to happen. They think they're a re-signing of Forsberg and probably one other player away from saying, this is our team. Johansson, Forsberg, Duchesne, Yossi, Ekholm, McDonough, Tanner Jeannot, Yakov Trenin, Saros, and whatever that extra guy is, and let it rock, babe. That's what they're doing. Well, and I'm still getting caught up in this left shot, right shot thing because so many people told me left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot.
Well, is that a difference of we can get a really good player on the very, very, very cheap, so let's just go ahead and rock with it?
Of course.
That's more important
than
left shot, right shot.
But then why did they have to play a really, really bad player 2 years in the playoffs and tell me it was about left shot, right shot?
I don't know.
So I was not here for this, and I was very disappointed that I was not here for this last week. Do you know what I'm about to say?
Yes, I do.
So when Paul Kaharski criticized the people who covered the team,
yeah, we touched on it.
This is what he was talking about, which is the team says something, and the people that cover the team, and I don't think these people, and I thought Paul, I think Paul was right, but I think he was wrong. Does that make any sense?
I think that Paul was a little bit too, it was too much of a blanket statement.
Yes, it was too black and white. It was too, all these people are fans and whatever, and they all cheer for the team, and I don't think that's true, because I think the most critical person in the entire city, as far as this team is concerned, is me, and I'm a fan. I'm a ticket holder. I go to the games. I cheer. I want our team to win. But the difference is like, I just don't think that they get challenged very often. That's what I think my issue is the coach runs out Ben freaking Harper in a playoff series in which 4 of the games went to overtime, and you lost 2 of them. And I had to run out Ben Harper, who freaking stinks, out there on the ice. And you've got Dante Fabro, a first-round pick, who you traded PK Subban away and said it was okay because you were going to put Fabro in there. And you're not playing him over Ben freaking Harper, who, again, freaking sucks. And you're playing Ben Harper, and you're doing it, and you're telling me left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot. And everybody else was like, yeah, left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot. Then they trade for Ryan McDonough, and it's like, yeah, forget about that. What? No.
It's a fair point. It's a very fair point to make. I just don't have.
But the frustration is not the frustration of what happened 2 years ago is not a big deal to people right now. I know.
Because
but
this is
me.
Overall a good move. But I do have to question.
It was also an easy move.
Well, what happened to getting younger? You're not getting younger by acquiring Ryan McDonough. He's a good player, and I'm not mad at the trade whatsoever. I think it was actually a very good move on the part of David Boyle. But if you're going to talk about getting younger, and then you turn around and you sign a, 33-year-old defenseman? What is your plan? This is why I question the plan, because I don't see a clear path forward, because you keep prioritizing getting younger and then you sign older veteran players.
No, they're going to make the playoffs this year. Yeah. Like, this move solidifies that they're going to make the playoffs. I also will say this, and I don't exactly know how these hockey trades work because they're worded so weird on different things. Ian, does the no trade clause, does that continue with McDonough to Nashville?
I don't think it necessarily has to.
Because if you're not very good and you've got Ryan McDonough on your team at the trade deadline, you'll get a lot better than Philip Myers and whoever the other guy was, the pick. Do that on your own time. They will get a lot better in return than that. I mean, if Jeremy Lauzon is a second-round pick, Ryan McDonough is probably a first.
Well, that was a trade out of necessity by Tampa Bay. They just needed to get rid of his salary.
And it was, we can send you where you want to go, or you can go to Columbus. I'll go to Nashville.
I'll go to Nashville over Columbus.
But again, we said after the Lauzon signing, no more bad players. Now, this was a layup because my guess is Tampa called around the league and said who would be interested in Ryan McDonough and how many teams can take on a $6.7 million salary straight up without having to move extra money around. They can even save more money if they end up cutting Myers, which I don't understand this because I thought the NHL cap is as strict as all the other or more strict than the other caps. But this Myers buyout, if they buy him out, they get X amount of dollars back. And if they don't, whatever, that's their problem, not my problem. But there just probably weren't a lot of teams that could take on that salary. And with Ryan McDonough, it's like, hey, you get to live in a nice place. It's income tax free. Like, they made the playoffs last year. Maybe you can help, as opposed to Columbus or wherever else was looking for him.
Right.
So when they said, hey, we'll take, this pile of nothing in exchange for Ryan McDonough, that's an easy trade to make.
Oh, of course.
But they did get a good player. They got a good player at a position of need who I think is going to come in right away and help out every avenue of the team. And it's a good trade for the team. And they're now going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do anything extra. outside of making the playoffs, but I think this move solidifies that they probably will make the playoffs. And yet I'm mad about the left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot. What happened to that?
Well, you're just mad because you want someone to tell you that you were right.
No, I'm mad because
Which is fair.
I'm mad
I don't
because
blame you for that.
I'm mad because I don't like being lied to. That's why.
Fair.
Because that whole left shot, right shot thing was like, oh no, we can't have left shot, right shot. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It makes a little sense, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And no, it makes sense in the explanation. But what doesn't make sense is now you're going to turn around and make this move.
Yes.
Which, at its core, I think you're for it. I'm for it. I don't think it was a bad move whatsoever. I think it was actually a good move.
Well, the thing that bothers me, again, and this goes back to the Kaharski thing from
But
last
it's
week.
left shot, right shot, and it's getting younger.
No, it's left shot, left shot.
Yeah, left shot, and getting younger.
Left shot, left shot. By the way, I'd pair him with Yossi. This is what I would do, is I would put him with Yossi, and I'd be like, McDonough, you stay home. Yossi, go up. And that's what I attack, do whatever you want. But I would get those two on the ice together, and I would stick them together, and I wouldn't change them because it's going to take a while, for a new pair to get kind of used to each other. And I'd stick Ekholm with Fabro, and then put whoever you want on the bottom pair. There is a thought on Carrier I do want to get to at some point, 615-737-1025. But we'll take your reaction on this. And I have not been good with phones today, and probably in large part because I've been off for 5 days or whatever it's been.
You got a lot to say.
I got a lot to say. There's a new Philip Forsberg story that's out. Did you see this?
I did.
Oh, my God. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5 The Game.
Join Chase McCabe for Chasing Checkers every Sunday morning at 8 for all the news in the world of motorsports.
Joey Logano gets the very first victory in the next-gen car
while hearing from the big names.
Two-time champion Kyle Busch.
Being able to bring NASCAR, the Cup Series, back to Nashville is cool.
It's Chasing Checkers, presented by Apple Collision Centers and the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Dell's Black Friday and July sale is here with savings on top-rated business computers with Intel Core processors. Upgrade today by calling 877-ASK-DELL.
Nothing makes one feel better than the ability to give to someone in need. You have the power to give the most important gift of all, the gift of life, with a donation of your blood. Supplies are desperately low in our area, and your help is needed. Blood Assurance is a nonprofit community blood center that supplies our Middle Tennessee area hospitals. Please find it in your heart to donate. Be someone's hero today. Go to bloodassurance.org to find a location or blood drive near you. That's bloodassurance.org. Give blood, give local, save lives with Blood Assurance.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
102.5 The Game is teaming up with Newton Motor Group and Souls for Souls to provide shoes for children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area. With school coming back, our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. Please help however you can by going to thegamenashville.com/shoes. All donations go directly to Souls for Souls to give shoes to children in Middle Tennessee. thegamenashville.com/shoes.
Never miss a moment of the show.
What is this? Check it out.
Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Hey, Ryan, obviously Julian mentioned it was a tough conversation with you the other day to ask about, a trade. Like, how much did that catch you by surprise at all when he approached you about it? And you had every right, obviously, to stay there with no trade. Like, what led you to ultimately say, it's okay, I want to go somewhere else?
I mean, there's some private conversations that probably need to stay private. I mean, in the end, when somebody approaches you and asks if you'd be willing to go, it gets your mind thinking a little bit. You want to do, what's best for you as a player, what's best for you as a family. And like I said, it wasn't easy. It hasn't been an easy, 7 days here since we lost, and then hearing the news about potential trade. But to find out and for Nashville to be the landing spot, I couldn't be more excited. And I've mentioned that many times now. So it's hopefully a blessing in disguise here. And like I said, I'm just anxious and really motivated to get started here with the Nashville organization.
There you go. That was Freddie Freeman of the NHL, Ryan McDonough, who is not happy to be leaving Tampa Bay. By the way, so I'm on the Athletic page because I want to get to a story that Pierre Libra that Pierre wrote over the weekend. And it's like crushed. Ryan McDonough explains his exit from Tampa Bay. And I'm like, oh, he really want to be here? The best right there was, I think those conversations should stay private. It's been a tough couple of days, but I couldn't be excited more to be in Nashville.
Well,
you sound it, bub.
Does anyone blame him
No.
for being bummed
No.
for leaving Tampa Bay? You won 2 cups and competed for another one in the past 3 years.
Nope. No, I have no problem with Ryan McDonough feeling the way he feels. I totally get it. I totally sympathize and empathize. It is funny, though. And this goes back to it couldn't be more excited to be in Nashville. Really? Because you don't
Are
sound
you
it.
sure?
It's like if you're sniffling or you're sneezing and you're like, are your allergies bothering you? Sometimes it's okay to say yes.
Yeah, they are.
So I do want to get to this Pierre story because this was a story. So Pierre Lebrun writes at The Athletic.
Adam Vingan did mention how you, quote, say Pierre LeBrun's name like Pepe Le Pew.
Pierre Lebrun. So Pierre Lebrun writes, I just assume that he's from Montreal every time, too. He may not be, but every time I just assume that it's Pierre Lebrun.
Be from, Cleveland.
From Montreal. Why hasn't Philip Forsberg re-signed with the Nashville Predators? And then there's another part about this with Claude Giroux. I don't care about this. Pierre writes, when you talk to most people around the league, it's always been the expectation that Philip Forsberg would ultimately resign in Nashville. By the way, as of last week with this show, it was up from 100% to 101%. Now, everybody else, I think he could go, but not here. Pierre writes, he still very well might, but I think a lot of people are surprised that the negotiation hasn't produced an extension yet. My sense, Pierre writes, and do you think this is Pierre's sense, or do you think this is what Pierre's been told?
I think this is probably what he's been told.
Okay, keep that in mind.
Okay.
My sense is both sides aren't that far apart. They're both willing to do an 8-year extension at an AAV that begins with an 8. I'm glad they're both willing to do 8 years. Forsberg's camp, led by veteran agent J.P. Barry, is believed to want a dollar figure in the high 8s, while veteran general manager David Poyle is in the low 8s. Now, again, this is Pierre's sense. Mm-hmm. And Pierre's sense is that the Predators have offered low 8s. Well, where else have we heard low 8s with the Predators?
With our friend, Frank Zaravalli.
Okay. So now 2 national guys have said low 8s. They've both echoed it. And in between this, I've said, I have heard word on the street is that is complete and total bullcrap. That the Predators have offered more than what would be considered, quote unquote, low 8s. So, where do we think Pierre is getting his information from?
The agent.
Okay. Now, Pierre writes, still, is this thing really going to blow up over about $500,000 a year? By the way, the answer to that, this is not in Pierre's article, but this is just my opinion of that. No. Pierre writes, it feels like both sides have dug in with their latest positions. Forsberg, who turns 28 in August, is coming off a 6-year deal that paid him $6 million. I would have bet heavily a month ago that this would have been done by now. It's rather interesting that it hasn't concluded yet and other GMs and agents have taken notice. Because if suddenly Forsberg is on the market and perhaps Johnny Gaudreau goes to the market if he doesn't sign Calgary's 8-year offer, we've got quite the 1-2 punch at the top of the free agent frenzy. In the end, maybe it's because I still have a hard time seeing Forsberg leave Nashville, the only place he's ever played where players love living. I think it gets done. But it sure doesn't feel like a sure thing as of Monday morning. That comes from Pierre. So Pierre has told you twice in that story that I think he's going to re-sign in Nashville. But also twice in that story, Pierre has told you that he might not re-sign with Nashville. Great reporting, Pierre. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Everything I told you on Tuesday of last week, that the low eights is not, that they've offered more than that, and that the deal's going to get done, which is what I told you on Tuesday, that still stands. And I still buy it. And I think what this is, what have I said when people say, well, why hasn't the deal got done? Because that's what Pierre is wondering. Why is it, if it's this close, why hasn't it gotten done?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, because Forsberg's probably saying, I want 8.9 or I want 8.8. And the Predators have probably offered 8.5 or 8.6. And so now it's who blinks first, because the first person that says, okay, fine, we'll do 8.8, then you get the deal done. And Forsberg's camp is holding out till the end, and Poyle's camp is holding out until the end, and that's where we are. And when Elliot Friedman said last week multiple times, including on the midday show, that he is hearing from teams around the league that say that Forsberg and Nashville is going to get done at 8.5 a year, I'm telling you, that's probably coming from David Poyle, as we have discussed many a time when it comes to Elliot Friedman. So the Sarah Valley report and the Pierre reports line up as almost the same, which we think are coming from the agent, which are saying the Predators are offering the low eights. I'm telling you they've offered more than the low eights. Elliot has told you that everybody around the league thinks the deal's going to get done, and we know Elliot's talking to David Poyle. So it's going to get done, and it's going to get done, and what they're just doing is they're literally haggling over a couple of $100,000 a year, and that's what they're doing.
But the thing that I don't understand, and this is what I told you earlier, is I've heard from two sides of hockey insiders, hockey experts. And one camp says, well, this is just how hockey deals are done. They come down to the wire and they get signed at the very last minute, at the very last second. It's fine. This is what happens with hockey deals. And then I hear the other side, as Pierre LeBrun says several times in this article, well, I think he's going to stay, but why hasn't the deal been done? I'm shocked that I woke up Monday morning and the deal wasn't done. If they're going to reach an agreement, why aren't we there yet? So which one is it?
Ian, do you remember somebody that used to always say you never make a decision until you have to?
I do.
Who was that person?
That would be Floyd.
Never have to make a decision until you have to. So where I think both sides are, I think the Predators have offered either 8.5 or 8.6. And this is just speculating, but I think it's pretty good speculation. Or as Pierre would say, my sense, the Predators have probably offered 8.5 or 8.6. They're probably looking at 8.8, 8.9. And so the obvious thing would be 8.7. And I think that if David were to call up today and say 8.7, they'd probably say yes. And if Forsberg were to call the Preds and say 8.6, they'd probably say yes. But they're holding out over that couple of $100,000, and neither side has moved on this because they want to have seen themselves as winning the negotiation, and they want to, try to get the best deal for themselves, and they don't have to make a choice until now. And so that's what's going on here. I don't think, because I was told adamantly last week, and I relayed this to all of you, that trade protection is not a part of this. So we all thought that was the hang-up.
That made sense to be the hang-up.
But it's not.
No.
And Pierre hasn't reported that, and Sarah Valley didn't report that, and Elliot didn't report that, and I didn't report that. So, again, doesn't it feel like it's pretty obvious what's going on here? When we take the four things that people have said, like the four items that people have said, whether it's Sarah Valley and Pierre getting their information, we would assume from the agent, and Elliot getting his information, probably both from other clubs, but really probably from David. And then, I feel pretty certain about the people that I've talked to. I mean, this deal's going to get done. So when I look at the Predators offseason, this is what I think's happening. And remember, Willie said this a couple weeks ago, that the Predators are going to need to sign Forsberg, and then they're going to have to sign a couple other players too. So they got Forsberg, they've got Ryan McDonough, and I think they're looking at one more guy. And so if they can come away from this saying that they've got Ryan McDonough and Valerie Nichushkin, just throwing him out there, that they have those two guys in addition to what they had last year, plus an extra year to gel with everybody together, so that herd line's together for another year, and Fabro's got another year under his belt, and they're saying, TikTok, let's let it rock, babe. That's what I think they're doing.
Right.
That is the plan. That's my belief of what they're going to go into next year with. And they say, I can only take them at their word, they say that they think they can compete with this. and that's what I think's happening. But I again think that the Pierre article was used to kind of stoke fear in the Predators or in the fans of, could they really lose him? And the answer is no.
I was listening to NHL Network Radio a little bit yesterday.
Love them.
And just because of the McDonough trade and whatnot, they were talking about Forsberg, and one of their insiders, I believe it was Dave Pagnotta, was talking about, he's whatever as far as a true insider, but he was talking about the structure of the deal and how they pay out the money. And this sounds more like an NFL contract kind of thing than we're typical with NHL, but whether or not it's salary versus signing bonus and what that does to the future years of the deal and what happens if they need to have some type of buyout.
So I don't exactly know how that works. I always thought a buyout of a veteran player in the NHL was half of whatever the contract was for double the amount of time that was left on the deal, right?
I think that's usually what it has been. Yeah. At least that's what they did for tourists.
So maybe there's ranges of buyouts here. I don't know. What I do think is I could see Forsberg wanting more money up front, and I could see the Predators wanting to put more money on the back, like the actual money that they give him.
Right.
And I could see why the Predators would want to do that, right?
Incentivize him later on in the deal.
Well, it's not incentivizing. It is move money back to the later end of the deal. If you trade the guy, somebody else has to pay for that. But also, if I owned the team and I was selling it in 3 years, would I want to make the big purchase up front, or would I want to put some of that money years 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
That's fair.
But again, that doesn't matter to me. That's like this college football conference money.
Those are all the
I
X's
don't
and
care
O's
about
in the
that.
contract. The only thing that really matters
Ain't my money.
What is he getting signed? Yes
And
or no?
the
Okay,
AAV.
great. And how much per year?
615-737-1025. Add those both to the kitty. We're to your phones on the Preds next. Stillman and Company right here. Let me tell everybody about this great thing that we've got going on with our good friends at Newton Motor Group. So 1025, 1063 The Game and Newton Motor Group this summer are helping kids in Middle Tennessee as we team up with Souls for Souls to provide shoes to children experiencing homelessness in the Nashville and surrounding area. With school coming back, our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. But we cannot do it without you. Please help however you can by going to thegamenashville.com/shoes. All donations will go directly to the Souls for Souls to give shoes to children in Middle Tennessee experiencing homelessness. Let's do some good this summer, and thank you for your help. Thegamenashville.com/shoes. Newton Motor Group is a proud sponsor of Souls for Music City. Newton Motor Group, the best car deal in Nashville, starts at Newton.
Want the latest on the Predators from the people that cover them?
Heck of a year so far for the Predators. They've been so much fun to watch.
Join Robbie Stanley for Preds Insiders every Monday at 6.
I feel probably as good about this group of 6 on D.
Presented by Dr. Kelly Rice on Smashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Built upon a solid foundation of cast iron and steel, the Kubota L-Series is part of our under 100 horsepower tractor lineup rated #1 for reliability. They feature powerful Kubota diesel engines and easy operation. The durable Kubota L-Series. Talk to your local Kubota dealer today to schedule a demo. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
Visit Coleman Tractor Company, your local Kubota dealer in Clarksville, Nashville, Paris, and White House.
If you suffer from joint pain from arthritis or an injury, you know the traditional treatments, pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
New Chef's Chicken Sandwiches from Panera. Pan-seared chicken, a secret garlic aioli recipe, Parmesan crisps, and pickle chips all on a buttery brioche roll. Try one for only a $1 delivery fee when you order on their app. Restrictions apply.
Throughout the country, buried pipelines are indicated by a pipeline right-of-way. A long, wide stretch of grass cleared of trees and marked with signs. If you have a right-of-way near your home, do not plant anything in it or dig in it. Do not install a fence or build your kids a super cool fort without first getting the pipeline operator's approval. For more on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey Nashville, this is Laura Rutledge from the SEC Network, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
I think, like, there are some negotiations, when there's a deadline now. And so it's time to get serious. And you can tell in a lot of cases, not every case, but in a lot of cases, when there's been movement towards something or you're still nowhere. And the general feel around the league is that there's been movement. Like, I heard David Poyle say, we're talking long-term for Forsberg. That's what we want. I don't think that's a problem. I think 8 years, I think everybody kind of gets that that's probably where it's going to go here. I think everybody's known for a while now where the number was going to have to be for Nashville's comfort and for Forsberg's comfort. And, I maybe 8.5 is a little bit on the low end, but, I just asked some people for their guesses, and that's kind of where they think it's around. Now, it might not be exactly right, but some of these teams seem to feel that there has been some momentum. And I think when you get that close, you assume it's going to happen. They could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I'm under the assumption right now from the people I'm talking to who are more connected than I am that they think there's a path to a contract.
There you go. That's Elliot Friedman on the Midday Show last week. Now, that's a little confusing, too, only from this standpoint, that if David Poyle were to tell other teams, and we think Elliot's talking to Poyle, and I do.
Yeah.
But if, say, for instance, Elliot were to talk to other teams, and other teams were to say, yeah, we think that Nashville and Forsberg, that they're getting close to being done, the other teams could only hear that from one place, and that's J.P. Barry. They could not hear that. Poyle cannot call another team and tell them that he is getting close on a deal with Forsberg.
No.
That is collusion. That is against the rules. So you can't do that. So I don't know. Everybody's reporting sounds a little like there are forks I can put into every single person's reporting.
Like my sense from Pierre LeBrun. Is that your sense, or is that what somebody
that
has
what you're
told
being
you,
told?
and now
Right.
you have a sense because somebody told you?
And in the case from Elliot, is it teams around the league, or is it David that told you that?
Yeah.
So add that in there. One thing that I do want to say, now that Ryan McDonough's in the fold, and I've told you, if I'm the Predators, McDonough and Yossi are on one pair, Ekholm and Fabro are on the other pair, and I don't like Fabro just as much as you all don't like Fabro. I'm trading Alexander Carrier because I'm already paying $2 million a year for the next 4 years for one of my third pair defensemen. I'm not putting another guy. What am I going to put him on the third pair? All NHL last year. So I'm going to tell teams, all NHL rookie defenseman for sale. And if Lozon is a second-round pick, then what's Carrier?
Well, Lozon shouldn't have been a second-round pick.
But
That
if
was
he
just
is,
bad GMing on the part of David Poyle.
But will one of
However,
these-
if
will-
let's say that's the market.
will one of these noodle brains that's running these NHL teams that never get any better, and there's a lot of them, like New Jersey, will one of these guys give you something for a young defenseman that was all NHL
all
rookie
team?
I'm just saying. And this goes back to why I would do it, because I think Carrier sucks. And I don't think Carrier has the potential to not suck. Whereas I do believe that Fabro has the potential. He'll never realize it, But I do think that he has the potential to get better.
But
so
if
I'm
you
willing to give him
don't
a
think that
chance.
he's going to realize it, then what's the point in holding on to him and keeping your fingers crossed that he'll eventually find it?
Well, somebody has to play that fourth spot
Yes. So why can't that be Carrier?
because he stinks.
Does Fabro not stink?
Yeah, but Fabro's at least big and can skate. And big relative. He's bigger than Carrier. I mean, Fabro's a first-round pick. He's built like a first-round pick. Whereas
Carrier's
Carrier's
all rookie team.
Carrier's a little man. Carrier's a little guy who back checks Gabriel Landeskog and falls down to the ice. Back checks him and falls down on the ice. Let's get to your phones as promised. 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
One texter texts in and says, so we've got McDonough. We re-signed Forsberg. Who do you think is the missing link? Nazem Kadri, Johnny Hockey, etc.
Connor McDavid, I think, is the missing link for the Predators if you want to have a team that can legitimately compete with the big boys in this league. Now, what they're thinking, I think that what would that leave them with, right? If they signed Forsberg at 8.6, that would leave them with what, $9 million in cap space?
Well, not to mention McDonough's contract as well.
No, but they were at like 20. So
Okay.
you're factoring in his 6 and Forsberg's 8.
So let's say that's what, 15?
And then you got to sign Trennan back, and you got to add
Which
a
is
couple
gonna
of
be
guys
what,
in there,
2,
3, something like
It'd
that.
be about 10, 9 left. Yep.
And so then you got to add back in Trennan, and you got to add back in a couple other guys. So shave some money off that. So what are we really looking at to spend here? $8 million? If we had to guess?
7 or 8, yeah.
Okay. I'd like 2 players out of that. Now think about this. If you didn't pay $2 million for Jeremy Lozon,
And that's what's
you would
so
get 2
frustrating.
players out of this.
Is because you could look at Jeremy Lozon and say it's just $2 million a year. The Predators have so much cap space. But yeah, that's true. But $2 million, that's the difference between $7 million and $9 million. And that's a lot. I mean, that could be one player, and the difference between a $7 million player and a $9 million player is massive. Not to mention, a $4 million and a $5 million contract versus a 3 and a 4. Those are massively different types of players.
I will say this. I would not be surprised if the Forsberg deal gets done tomorrow.
Why tomorrow?
Because the draft is on Thursday, and I think you're better off, instead of signing guys, I think you're better off looking to trade for teams that need to trade people. Like teams that need, and the draft is Thursday, and so you want to get those picks. If you're going to make a deal on something, make it before the draft so those players can get, or those teams can get their picks. Maybe the Predators look at it the other way around, which is let's wait until after the draft. Then you sign Phillip. Then you use next year's picks instead of this year's picks. You can use next year's picks to get players on teams that want to go into July 13th and have a little money to spend. But for me, I do think Thursday is an important date on the calendar, and they can talk to more general managers when they're all there in Montreal. What's next?
Another texter texts in and says, how do you feel about the return on the Ellis trade now that the Predators have signed Ryan McDonough?
I mean, the same. They got a pair of Scarbinis in return to dump Ellis' salary, and then they traded a pair of Scarbinis to get Ryan McDonough, who was a dump of salary.
I love this new term that you've adopted.
Yeah, I still live in
Scarbinis.
Felger in Boston.
Just
a couple Scarbinis. I mean, that's what they are.
Just a couple of
just freaking whatever
scrubs.
Yes.
Part of me does wonder if they could have gotten more from Tampa to take away McDonough, because honestly, Tampa was a team in need here. They're the ones who needed to get rid of him, and part of me wonders if the Preds could have gotten more.
Like what? Like Palat? The rights to Palat too?
No, I mean nothing too crazy, but an extra pick, an extra player, because technically the Preds are doing Tampa a favor here.
Yeah, but
I know you
away
didn't get rid of
nothing.
any. I know you didn't really lose anything, but they weren't looking for players. They were looking just to dump salary.
That is true. And Ryan McDonough was trying to not go to Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had held out for more with Tampa.
But I'm sure Tampa was asking for much, much, much more in return, and this was the middle ground.
We cannot ask too much of David. He made a trade and got a good player in return for the first time in freaking who knows how long. Like since they traded for Wayne Simmons. Now that didn't work out, but at least Wayne Simmons was a kind of a good player. That was 3.5 years ago. That was before COVID even was like a glimmer in the sky. It wasn't even anything. That bat that probably had COVID, if that's what it was, that bat probably wasn't even alive yet.
We can't be too greedy.
The last time, right, that's my point. David got a good
But at the
player.
end of the day, you dumped a couple of non-starters, and you got a legitimate starting defenseman out of it.
I mean, not even total Scarbinis.
Total
Which was
just
a word that I wanted to not
scrubs.
steal. I have stolen so much from that radio program in Boston that I didn't want to steal this. And I did, and I couldn't help myself because it's just the perfect word. Just a couple of freaking Scarbinis. That's what they were. I mean, it's a Grant mismatch. What the hell? What? Who? What? Gone.
Scarbinis.
Trade more of him. Not second. I think he was a second-round pick, but not second-round picks for Jeremy Lozon. That is a
Second-round picks
Scarbini.
for Scarbinis.
No Scarbinis. Again, the rule: no more bad players.
An
This
MVP,
trade,
put it on a
not a
t-shirt.
bad player. More of your phones: 615-737-1025. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Heat index this afternoon, 105 to 110 with isolated storms possible. We do this for the rest of the week.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
When you need to hire, you need Indeed. The hiring solution helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
Our fleet vehicle program is a great benefit to all the fleet companies in Nashville. We are able to get their vehicle back on the road a lot quicker than the downtime of most dealers and most general repair shops, simply because we have the transmissions available. We're able to put priority on their vehicles to get them back on the road quickly.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
For the love of the climb, for the love of the fall, for the love of knowing your kids' laughter is the sweetest music there is, for the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
When Smashville wants to rock.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Looking to the sky to save me, looking for a sign of life, 'cause it's too cold for you here.
We are Nashville's rock station. 1029 The Buzz.
Nothing makes one feel better than the ability to give to someone in need. You have the power to give the most important gift of all, the gift of life, with a donation of your blood. Supplies are desperately low in our area, and your help is needed. Blood Assurance is a nonprofit community blood center that supplies our Middle Tennessee area hospitals. Please find it in your heart to donate. Be someone's hero today. Go to bloodassurance.org to find a location or blood drive near you. That's bloodassurance.org. Give blood, give local, save lives with Blood Assurance.
Robbie Stanley.
To avoid non-contact injuries and not repeat last year.
Joe Rexroad.
Just wait until next year's national TV schedule comes out.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
on ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Do you think homerism is a big problem in today's media? Like, how do you view the current state of media today in 2022?
Let's set 10 minutes aside for this
giant.
answer.
It is a giant problem, a massive problem. Who is a legitimate reporter? Rexroad's not full-time on the Preds by any means. Who's the singular legitimate reporter on the Nashville Predators in Tennessee now after Adam Vingan? There isn't one.
Yeah.
There is not a single journalistic reporter covering the Nashville Predators in Tennessee who isn't cheering for them in the press box. It's
That's
pathetic.
not true. That's not
Who
true.
is it?
There you go. That was the Kaharski versus the Preds media on Wednesday morning. So I obviously was on vacation, and I was very disappointed in Paul Kaharski for dropping that nugget on Robbie and Rexroad with me out the rest of the week, because I heard that, and it literally pained me. It pained me that I couldn't comment on that.
That sounded like something that instantly went off as like a red flag in my head of that's something that Jared wants to talk about.
Probably would have spent an hour on it, honestly. I'll say this. First of all, if I had to give out, so I'm in the Fort Lauderdale airport, right? So I'm flying through Fort Lauderdale to where I went, and I'm in the Fort Lauderdale airport, and I see on Twitter all the Preds media is just all mad at Paul Kaharski, and by Preds media I mean like a couple people, and so I listened to what he said, and I heard what he said, and I was like, oh, that's some tea, and I'm like, and I can't even talk about it. So let me say this: who I think people should really be mad at. I think they should be more mad at Robbie than they are Paul. I mean, what were they expecting Paul to say when Robbie asked that question to Paul? In fact,
no.
What was Robbie expecting Paul to say when he asked Paul that question?
Because Robbie did not put a gun to Paul Kaharski's head and say you have to criticize the Preds media. So I'm not going to I'm not going to put blame on Robbie. But to your point, that was a toss-up softball question for Paul to just knock it out of the park.
And I'm going to say this. I mean, I don't think that Paul is completely wrong. And I know that I'm almost more mad than I am anything else about this, or jealous might be the right word, because Paul says it and people get mad for an hour. I say that 4 years ago, and those people still have grudges today that they won't let go because I called them homers for picking the Predators to beat Chicago in the 2017 first round. It's like everybody's let go of their angst towards Paul, but for me, it's like, oh yeah, Jared Stillman called us all a bunch of bobos, and which they are. And I'll say this. I have been in the press box during Preds games. Not a lot of them. I usually sit in the seats, and I root for the Predators, and I am a Predators fan, and I'm a Predators ticket holder. I just don't think the Predators get challenged very much as far as...
But the way that Paul was saying it was that everyone in the press box has their blue and gold pom-poms, and they're waving them all above their head and saying, yay, Predators, yay, Predators. That's not the case.
That is not how this team is covered. But I do feel like this team is... I felt almost icky a couple weeks ago when that guy didn't vote for Roman Josi because of the analytics. I felt icky criticizing that because it felt so local, like, our guy didn't win. And I felt so bad about that. Like, I just like, oh, God, I don't want to be that guy.
Well,
I
it's
don't
not
want to be
illegal to defend something that didn't really make sense, whether it's the hometown kid or not.
I know, but then the usual places were all... this man should lose his vote for life. That is a difference between that and that. And again, I just think there's too many instances where the Predators do something just wild or say something just crazy. And I feel like I'm the only person in the room thinking, am I the only person who heard this and doesn't think like, what? And most of the time it's Adam that is the other person who would think the way that I would think. And, or would at least, have the same kind of questions I would have. Or, Joe and I would argue about them. But, I mean, I just remember when they told us about how great the hire of John Hines was because New Jersey said, oh, he's just the best. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking around the room. I'm like, what's going on here? And so I asked the question, like, if they love him so much, why'd they fire him? And
which I think is a fair question.
Oh, my God. People were like, how dare he say that? And that is what I think Paul was talking about. So I think he was wrong, but I think he was right. And I was just sad that I didn't get to react to that. So let's go to your phones, as I promised. Phone 615-737-1025. What do we have?
One texter texts in and says they basically traded Ryan Ellis in 1 year for McDonough and Cody Glass. In those terms, it's not terrible, but he could help redeem himself by finishing off this draft or offseason. I think he, meaning David Poyle, finishing off this draft and offseason with some plays for another top six winger.
Well, you also gave up a year. So if you're saying you traded Ellis for McDonough and Cody Glass, you really traded Ellis and one whole hockey season.
That's what the texter says, is Ryan Ellis in 1 year for McDonough and Cody Glass.
I mean, that, like, when you're 72, years are not finite, or years are not infinite. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but, like, I didn't get free tickets this past season to watch the team play with nobody capable of playing a top 4 role that Ryan McDonough's going to have to play. I mean, again, if it is you have to trade for bad players and then wait and then trade for good players, generally speaking, while it may have worked out in this instance, it is not something that is sustainable to say, well, let's go back and give that trade a high mark, because I liked the Ellis trade when they made it because it was time, because Ellis was no good anymore. People say, well, Ellis was just getting hurt and they got out before he got hurt, and he was always hurt all the time, but he just wasn't very good anymore. That was my problem. So they got out of the Ellis contract. Yay. What's next?
Michael texts in and says the Predators gave Jeremy Lozon $2 million, but they're haggling over less than $1 million with Forsberg.
I know.
But that's why.
I know.
That's what's so frustrating is these small contracts add up. $2 million isn't chump change now.
So here's how this should work with this kind of player. This kind of player should make $900,000 or $800,000 or whatever the league minimum is. Because when that guy starts to make more money, because he's on your third pair for 2 years and now he's got to get a new contract, and so he's going to want, $2 million or 1.7 or whatever, then you let him go to another team and you call up the next guy from Milwaukee who's some random Joe and you put him in the lineup. That's what the third pair should be. Not $2 million in a second-round pick, but that's what you're doing. So instead of, again, we think that it'll shake out where they could have $8 million in cap space. It's like, boy, if they had 10, they could probably get, two good players or 2 players and
2 solid players.
Or you could work a deal with one of these teams that's up against it where they retain a little bit of salary and you get an even better player. And that's why I get so worked up. That's why I get so mad when they do things like this. And that goes back to the challenging angle of, like, I want the Predators to be challenged that I'm talking about. When they make a trade like the Lozon trade, and it's like, well, I know that none of these other teams that had him liked him, but we see something special in him. And then we don't see anything special, and then they sign him because they have to, and everybody's like, well, you can't judge him because he only played 13 games for the Predators. I'm like, yes, I can.
Well, 13 games is a pretty big sample size.
Well, he played for other teams.
Years, and right, it's not his 13th game in the NFL, but I think 13 games is plenty of a sample size for me to say that you are good or you are not.
I just don't like the money that you have to commit on a restricted free agent deal for Yakov Trenin. That's like, you can't just go to Milwaukee and go get the next Trenin. Or if you do, you'll have to draft it, and then you'll have to wait on it. And so Trenin is, like, important. This guy, Scarbini. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. So I've now realized what they're doing to college football. And if you know where to listen and how to listen, it becomes even more obvious. And I want to get to that coming up next because I don't like this. And I'll let everybody else decide right here on Stillman & Company. Fireball Cinema Whiskey. I was off on vacation on Fireball Hot Take Friday, but don't worry. I was enjoying some Fireball. I love Fireball Cinema Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to enjoy your weekends or your holidays or whatever you may have than with ice-cold Fireball Cinema Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. That's why I absolutely love Fireball Cinema Whiskey. That's right. Fireball Cinema Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinema Whiskey.
The MTSU Blue Raiders live here.
Touchdown, Middle Tennessee! 3-ball, yes, sir!
And when you're in the borough, tune us in on 97.5.
In the end zone, caught, touchdown!
We are Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
If you're looking to hire, look to Indeed. With Indeed's end-to-end hiring solution, you can attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
When you want to rock.
Let's go, don't wait. This night's almost over.
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
For the love of Tennessee at dawn. For the love of the fight. For the love of having nowhere else you'd rather be. For the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Ever wonder what toys do when people aren't around? With the Nashville Symphony performing the score live, Disney Pixar's Toy Story answers that question with a fantastic, fun-filled journey, viewed mostly through the eyes of two rival toys. Woody, the lanky, likable cowboy, and Buzz Lightyear, the fearless space ranger. Toy Story in concert with the Nashville Symphony, July 8th through the 10th, including a Sunday matinee performance. Presented by Disney Concerts. Get your tickets now at NashvilleSymphony.org.
Hey, I'm Matt Saggio. I'm a marketing consultant with Cromwell Media. I get the opportunity to help local and regional businesses grow by pairing the right marketing solutions with their goals. You hear advertisers I work with on the radio every day, and you see their digital ads on your phone. I love what I do, and have been doing this for going on 10 years. Are you looking for a rewarding career in media advertising? Do you love helping people? Let's talk about you joining our team. Shoot us an email at together@cromwellmedia.com. That's together@cromwellmedia.com.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Robbie and Rex Road to DDC.
Stillman and Company. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball. The leading receiver. Awesome game 7.
Checker flag in the air. The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury. He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving 102.5. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. College football, as we know it, will never be the same. It will never be the same. And in the past, we've had some conference realignment here or there, but it hasn't been too over the top. And now, it's the two super leagues. It's the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're both one after another. We get two, okay, then we'll get two. All right, then we'll go get two more. Then we'll go get two as well. It's like a poker game, and all the other conferences are just kind of left trying to figure it out. The Big 12 is trying to take Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, which is also funny that they're trying to take Colorado back, who left to go to the Pac-12 years ago. They're trying to take those four schools from the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is trying to find new schools. Oregon and Washington is looking for their way out, possibly to the Big Ten. Notre Dame is sitting out there as the hottest girl without a prom date. I mean, it is a lot. But I want everybody to know where this is headed. And I think sometimes you have to listen to the people that know the most and where they are talking and who they're talking to. So Kirk Herbstreit was on Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM after the UCLA-USC news broke, and Kirk told you, and I think Kirk's got pretty good sources at ESPN who's pushing a lot of this, and I think Kirk's got pretty good sources in college football, and Kirk Herbstreit, and I just want to say this for the record. The reason, if you turn on the studio shows on ESPN and Fox, the reason they're all talking Kevin Durant and they're not talking this is because ESPN and Fox don't want their host talking about this. And the reason they don't want their host talking about this is because they're the ones that are doing this. Like, they're the ones that are behind all of this. It's what Fox wants. I talked to a source in college football that told me Fox was in the room.
Well, that was a point that I made either on Thursday or Friday. I don't remember what it was, but everyone was talking about two parties in this situation. USC and UCLA and the Big Ten. But nobody was talking about the most obvious player in all of this, Fox.
Yeah, it's Fox and ESPN.
Fox is the one that's collecting all the checks.
It's Fox and ESPN. Well, Fox is writing the checks. And if you're the ones writing the checks, then you're the one who gets final say with everything in life. You think that the coach of the Cleveland Browns is the one who wanted to go give Deshaun Watson a $240 million guaranteed contract?
No.
It was the owner, and he writes the check. So Fox and ESPN are writing the checks, so they're the ones that are driving this. They're telling the schools. There's an article on this on Awful Announcing where an athletic director spoke off the record, and he said that Fox and ESPN are saying, hey, this school's worth $40 million to you. This school's worth $30 million to you. So what do you think? And that's what's happening here. And so TV's pushing this.
Yes.
And so instead of that, you're not going to see people on TV. They're not going to bring on, the TV people. They're not going to bring Kirk Herbstreit on First Take to ask Herbie, hey, Herbie, is ESPN the one ruining college football? The networks are trying to distance themselves from the damage, but they know what they're doing. And so you got to kind of decipher what they're saying. Here's what Herbie said on Thursday about where college football is headed.
It's going to be the AFC and the NFC of college football. And you have, 4 divisions within each conference? You may have 2 or 3 divisions within each of these Big Ten and SEC conferences. And I think you'll see eventually them go to like a 12 or a 16-team playoff. And it's essentially going to be NFL football on Saturdays. I just think that's where this thing's headed before it's all said and done.
Okay. Do you think Kirk is saying that like as this is what I think, or do you think that Kirk kind of knows this?
I think Kirk kind of knows this.
So I want to go back to something.
A lot of people kind of know this.
I want to go back to something Feinbaum said. This was June of last year. So this is before Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC. This is before USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten. And this is what Feinbaum said 1 year ago. 13 months ago.
The problem with college football, they don't have any leadership. So what are they going to do? They're looking around going, who is doing this right? Where are all the eyeballs? Where's all the money? It's the NFL. College football right now cannot compete with the NFL, even though they probably shouldn't be trying, but their numbers are inferior. So what they're going to do is just break the bank. They're going to open this thing up, and suddenly we're going to be talking about wild card games and home field advantage in college football playoff, just like we do with the NFL.
And then Kirk Herbstreit's telling you it's going to be the NFL, 2 conferences, the AFC, the NFC divisions, 12-team, 16 playoff. Here you go. That's where this is headed. They know. They know. Feinbaum knows because Feinbaum Talks is the direct link between the SEC and ESPN/Disney. Feinbaum's the link. You want to know how Feinbaum got that job? Because the SEC started the network and they told ESPN, hire that guy. So Feinbaum is as in as you can be on this.
Yeah.
He knows. Kirk is in on this. He knows. He's going to be calling these games. You don't think this came up? He's going to be calling NFL games on Thursday. If Herbie wanted to go to Fox to do their, and I don't know the exact contracts or whatever, but if he wanted to do the number 1 games on Fox instead of Greg Olson, my gut tells me he probably could. And so what happens is ESPN says, hey, don't go anywhere because this is what's going to happen to college football, and we'll let you do the Amazon Thursday, so you'll collect 2 checks, and you'll get to do the NFL, and you'll get to do an NFL playoff game, and this is what it's going to be in college. You're going to get the best game every single week because there's going to be 2 conferences, so you're going to get the best SEC or ACC or whatever's left game, and they're going to get the best Big Ten game. That's what this is. They know. So here's my question. Is this good for college football or not?
Well, it kind of depends on what you're prioritizing. Because if you are somebody who values
fan interest,
I think it's ultimately a bad thing for fan interest.
I think it is too. And I'm going to tell you why. And you know me, I am not a tradition guy. I cannot wait till TV finally convinces the NFL to kick the Lions off of Thanksgiving. But while I am not a tradition guy, I also know that people do not like radical change.
No.
And this is absolutely radical.
Especially something that has been touted as being such a tradition. You know, we always say everything changes, but college football stays the same.
When you talk about college football, you can hear Keith Jackson in your head, and he's been dead for 5 years. That's how traditional college football is, and it's not a traditional bore like baseball has become. And I say this because I think for many reasons college sports is kind of a racket. That's why I don't ever care about players getting paid or transfer portals, because I think the players have kind of been screwed over for a long time.
Yeah.
And so while I'm not one to sit there and say, you have to pay the players, because I believe in Title IX, and I don't think you can pay all the female athletes the same as you pay the football players, I do at the same time think that, the players do deserve some money. So if you can find a way to legally do it, let's do it. But my issue with this is I just don't think that this is going to become minor league football. And I just don't think that people are
in a way, it already is.
It's always been minor league football. And this goes back to me saying that I think college football is a racket. Is for years I've never understood this. That is, you can get millions and millions and millions and millions of people to watch minor league football. You can get whole towns across the country, states across the country, states that we live in or are close to, where people prefer minor league football to major league football. I don't get it.
I honestly do. I prefer college football to the NFL.
Think about this. Would ESPN ever offer millions and millions and billions of dollars in order to broadcast the Sounds playing the Gwinnett Stripers?
No, but they offered $3 billion for the SEC game.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well,
it's wild to me. And so
that also is the difference between football and everything else.
Yeah, but the USFL?
But that's different because
it sucks.
You don't have any sort of allegiance to the New Orleans Breakers.
And that is where, and I'm not saying it's going to become the USFL, but that's the rub here, is that if we do this where we go to these divisions and wild card games and things like that, then people will, if you like Alabama, you'll always like Alabama and it'll always be the same. But as far as the masses are concerned with college football, there's going to be a lot of people in the Denver, Colorado area that probably got into it or had some rooting interest with rivalries in a conference that they believed in, or the Dallas area with TCU and Baylor, and now it's like, well, your games don't matter anymore. And I'm telling you, like, this to me is what's going to be bad for the fan interest. Is 10 years ago, every single college football game mattered because if you lost one, you might be out.
It wasn't even just 10 years ago.
If you lost two,
now.
If you lost two, you were definitely out.
Yeah.
You can lose two now, and you can still make it into the playoff. You can get away with that. You cannot.
Has any team lost 2 games and gotten into the playoff? Or
Didn't Alabama lose 2 in 2018?
2018.
Or 2017? Where they were the 4th seed and Tua threw the touchdown pass in relief of Jalen Hurts?
I don't remember.
Because I want to say that they lost to Auburn, and I think they lost to somebody else that season. But
I don't remember.
You can get in. I mean, Ohio State has been either on the doorstep or in. I think somebody's gotten in with 2 losses. But you can legitimately, like, lose games, and they still, you're much better than it was before, where in 2012, in order to win the title, Alabama didn't just need to win out. Alabama won every game after they lost to A&M when Johnny Football went crazy. And then they needed Baylor to lose. They needed Oklahoma State to lose. And they needed somebody else to lose. And they were lucky that Ohio State was on probation and wasn't bowl eligible, or else Ohio State would have gone. So now when you expand it, it doesn't make like each individual game as important, though they're still pretty important. You do this, where we got 2 Super Leagues and 16 teams, which means 8 teams from the SEC are probably going to the playoff. These regular season games don't mean anything.
They just don't bear as much weight as they do now. It's going to be the same thing as the NFL. You lose 5 games, and you're probably one of the best teams in the league.
But the NFL, and this goes back to like the basketball tournament, makes no sense to me that the basketball tournament is as popular as it is when most people around the country do not care about college basketball anymore. But as soon as that basketball tournament gets going, everybody's ready and excited to watch the basketball tournament.
Because every game means
and
something.
Everybody gets into it. What's going to happen here with college football is the regular season games that are drawing 6 million viewers are going to draw 3 million viewers instead. And it's going to be like college basketball because everybody makes it. 68 teams get in college basketball. And so it doesn't, if you have a team, you'll care. But most Americans do not care about the difference between a 2 seed and a 3 seed. Most Americans do not watch until they debut the brackets on CBS on that Sunday. And then on Thursday, everybody is in. And by the next week, everybody's an expert on all the teams that are left.
But I still think that the length of the college football season is doing college football a favor. Because in college basketball, I mean, how many games do you play?
A lot.
A lot. So if you lose 10 of them, like I said, you're probably one of the best teams in college basketball. I know that now in college football, there are more seats at the party with an expanded college football playoff and with larger conferences, but you still only have a 12-game season. So the difference between, the 5th best team in the country and the 15th best team in the country historically is very, very negligible. It's a razor-thin margin because everyone is playing 12 games.
Do you really think that's true, though?
Well, if you lose 3 games versus 4 games, that's a big difference.
But do you think that the margin is really that small?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I absolutely don't. We've had the same 3 teams that make the playoff every year.
Well, if you look back at the past, 4 or 5 years, the 10th best team in the country is like 11-2 with a bowl game win. So let's say 10-2 in the regular season. Well, you can be 10-2 and make the college football playoff or be on the outside. So let's say you're 5th and the 10th best team in the country is also 10-2. That's 5 teams that are separating, and the same exact record between 5 and 10.
Yeah, but none of those teams are beating Alabama.
What does that have to do with it?
So once we get them in there, like you're talking about, this will be great because there's parity, right? You're saying that the difference is so small, right?
No, I'm saying that you are saying that, games don't matter anymore.
The regular season.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't agree because the margins are so razor thin because you have such a short season that every game is still going to matter. If you lose 3 games, no, you could still probably make the college football playoff. That's where that's different. But it's not like you can go out there and just poop the bed every week and expect to make the playoff. Regular season games still do matter.
Sure.
And seeding in an expanded playoff will matter.
But it won't matter because those teams can't win. Like, go back to the basketball tournament.
What do you mean they can't
the
win?
difference between the 68th team and the 69th team, every year, you got Dickie V after they released the brackets on it. Oh, it's awful that they didn't include Seton Hall. I mean, oh, baby, they were so good this year. And the committee didn't have a quadrant 3 victory, and that's why they didn't put them in a tournament. It's awful, baby. Every year, right?
Uh-huh.
What's the difference between that and 15, 16 in college football? That's what it's going to be. So, this one team lost 3 games, and this one team lost 3 games.
We still have those same conversations between 4 and 5.
And it will always happen.
It'll just be expanded.
It will always happen.
So it'll be the difference of strength of schedule and quality of losses. We'll have these same conversations.
I am not arguing.
There's just more teams.
I'm not arguing that the regular season won't matter. I'm saying it will matter significantly less.
Well, you could also look at it from the perspective of once you lose 2 games, you pretty much are out of the dance. And if you lose 2 games in the first 8 weeks, then why do the next 4 weeks matter?
They don't. And then they don't play you.
So now they matter more because if you lose 2 games, you can still be in competition for the college football playoff.
And maybe that works, but in a regional sport where people care about their team or their conference.
It's not regional anymore.
And that's a problem. You try to take something that's regional and make it national, good luck.
Why?
Because imagine trying to take baseball national. Baseball doesn't even try to take baseball national anymore.
And that's part of the problem with baseball.
But how can they take it national? How can you take baseball national when you're adding all these teams in there? You want people to love their team because they're watching it every single day. But when you take it national, then where you want every game to matter, then what you have to do is you almost have to show the same 4 teams over, which is essentially what's going to happen here, where they're only going to show the same 4 or 5 teams. And that's why the 2 networks just want USC
but again,
to play
how
Ohio
different
State once
is that
a week.
from now?
I think it's big now. To go to conference championship weekend. Hold on this. We'll get it on the other side. But I do think of conference championship weekend. And I want to pick it up right there. And then promise some phones. And then Trevor at 430-615-737-1025. Stillman & Company at 102.5 The Game.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman & Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have 2 choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators.
Scores!
Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
At the law office of Amanda J. Gentry, we are committed to defending your rights.
We have a team committed to helping you navigate the court system, whether you've been accused of a crime or you're going through a messy divorce and custody. Call our team to help you navigate this system. We are here to protect your rights, to demand your rights, to enforce your rights. 615-604-6263. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
QC Kinetics patient Robert Patterson, a veteran and business owner, struggled at work and in the gym with chronic agonizing shoulder pain.
Those injuries just continue to nag, and if you don't treat them, they just get worse. And I just kind of abused my body for a long time, and it finally had said enough is enough.
That's okay, because QC Kinetics tells your pain, hey, enough is enough. Their regenerative treatments bring you relief by helping restore and repair damaged tissue with no drugs, no downtime, and best of all, no surgery.
I was able to exceed the goals that I had previously attained in the gym. It was absolutely worth its weight in gold, so I could continue to live life without limitation.
Ready to get lasting relief from your joint pain? Call QC Kinetics to learn more about how natural biologic treatments can get you lasting results. Call now. It's a free consultation.
615-249-4024. QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024.
1025 The Game is teaming up with Newton Motor Group and Souls for Souls to provide shoes for children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area. With school coming back, our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. Please help however you can by going to thegamenashville.com/shoes. All donations go directly to Souls for Souls to give shoes to children in Middle Tennessee. thegamenashville.com/shoes.
It's on. It's happening. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Get out of the way. I'm watching the game.
Presented by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Don't be surprised if the SEC starts looking a little bit further down the road than maybe just Austin, Texas, or Norman, Oklahoma, because this dance for supremacy kind of has just begun.
That's Rick Neuheisel saying, hey, don't look at them. They may go more west out there at the SEC. On my SiriusXM show yesterday and for Pat McAfee, I do want to say this. We were talking about, again, making college football two super conferences like the AFC and the NFC, and essentially having 8 or 6 teams from each of those two conferences go to the playoffs. And I'll give you an example where it makes individual games matter less. The conference championship game. So right now, on almost any given year, 4 of the 5 conference championship games have serious juice to it.
Oh, yeah.
And even if it's not, you're going to get 4 teams from one conference, there is a chance that one team knocks out another team, and then you get a second team from the SEC, or you get a Cincinnati. Or
exactly what happened last year with Alabama and Georgia. Georgia beats Alabama. Alabama probably does not get into the college football playoff.
Exactly. Just like that. Well, now your SEC and your Big Ten championship game don't matter because those teams are, all 4 of them are going.
Well,
right.
Not necessarily true, because ESPN and Fox are going to want to make those conference championship games matter as much as possible. So I think that it'll be, I know it already is kind of like an automatic bid situation. So it'll be a first round bye kind of situation. Or I think that they will find some way to make the conference championship games matter. So it's not just like you throw in your backup because you're in no matter what kind of situation.
The NFL always makes the last Sunday night football game of the year. They try to make it the most meaningful game. They always want it to be a play-in game. If their option is a play-in game or a gets a first round game, but both teams make the playoffs, or the team that's going for it's going to make the playoffs, they will take the play-in game, even if it is the Titans and the Colts with Mariota at quarterback. They will take that. But you're automatically getting rid of that with the conference championships. Like, if you're going to get 6 teams and you're doing away with divisions, which they're doing, so you're having one playing 2, they're going to the playoff anyway. So you're already knocking that. Then the other 3 conference championship games don't matter at all.
Why?
If I've got 8 teams from each conference that are going to the playoff, in the Super Conference.
Okay.
And everybody else is out.
Are we talking about if a conference or if the college football playoff is 4 teams, if it's 8 teams,
I mean,
or however many teams?
Herbie said it's going to be 12 or 16.
Okay.
So it's either 6 and 6 or 8 and 8. If these are the Super Conferences, the AFC, the NFC, they're not putting the Birmingham Stallions in the NFL playoffs this season. So it is, if this is the way it's going to be Big Ten and SEC. So now ESPN has, I believe, 3 premium championship games. No, I think they have 2. They have the ACC, and they have the Big 12 or the Pac-12, which options every other year.
I'm sorry, SEC, CBS. But
CBS and they will have that.
SEC.
And then Fox has the Big Ten.
Yep.
And then Fox has the other one that is not ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now those 3 don't matter, and your 2 don't matter. So now the conference championship weekend that's drawing, 15 million viewers a game, are you really going to get 15 million viewers when there's not that much on the line?
Well, then maybe it's not a conference championship game anymore. Maybe the conference champion is the team with the best record at the end of the season. And that final game of the season, which normally would be conference champion weekend, is a play-in game.
So now you're going to put, instead of Ohio State versus USC for the Big Ten championship, you're going to put, who are some of these?
Well, to your point, if it's Ohio State, USC, why does it matter? Because they're both going to the college football playoff anyway.
That's my point. But so instead, we're going to put who's the 6th best team. Who are the 6th and 7th best teams in the Big Ten?
Wisconsin,
Iowa,
Nebraska, Iowa.
So we're going to have Iowa, Minnesota as our premium game.
Well, then that's why I'm saying, because it doesn't sound like a great idea. But then why don't you incentivize conference champions then? So the first round of the college football playoff, because if you expand to 12 teams, you're going to have several rounds of the college football playoff. The conference champions get a first-round bye.
No, you might be right. I'm just telling you that the interest of it's not going to be the same as Alabama playing for a playoff spot in the championship game.
No, I'm saying that's what was the proposal for the 12-team playoff was
buys and home
buys
field
for
and weird
4
things.
of the 5 Power 5 conferences. And so the top 4, they get first-round buys. So that's something to play for. No, you're not playing for a spot in the playoff.
But wouldn't all those teams get the buys? If you're getting 4 buys in a 12-team playoff.
But this was in the model of a Power 5.
I know, but
so you could say that
you would have to give, if you had 4 buys, you'd have to give the buys to the teams that had the best records, which would be the 2 teams that are playing in the SEC and the Big Ten championship game.
Well, then it would be probably
So now I'm going to go to the Big Ten championship game, and if I was 3rd, then I would get a bye, because if I lose the Big Ten championship game, then I don't get a bye.
If I lose the Big Ten championship game, I don't get a bye. Correct. You don't get a bye.
But 2 teams from the Big Ten have to get a bye.
Well, I'm saying the 4 buys were constructed under a Power 5 conference. If there's 2 super conferences, then 2 teams get a bye, and the remaining 10 teams play each other. So there has to be in a 12-team playoff. So let's say there's 2 super conferences. In a 12-team playoff.
You'd have to have 2 buys on each side.
Why?
Because you'd have too many teams for rounds. Like, that's why the NFL cut a bye when they added a team. But it's because...
No, you would have 2... If let's say it's a 12-team playoff, you have 2 buys for the conference champion, for the SEC Mega and
the
Big Ten Mega.
Okay.
So you have 10 teams left that will play for the remaining spots.
Okay, so then you have 5 games going on at one time.
Yeah.
So then you'll have 5 teams remaining, and your bye that'll have 6. Then you've got 3 teams on each side of the bracket. So the 2 teams win a game, and then what, do they have a round robin?
I don't know.
And my whole point is, this whole thing that we're talking about, we think this is good for college football?
Well, I mean, this isn't going to happen.
But that's what
it could.
It's going to be something. I want to get Weston's call in on this before we get to Trevor. Weston, thank you for calling. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I was listening to the show and everything, and I like what y'all are going with here on the college football playoffs. I'm sitting here listening, and I really do believe that if you decided to bring in a playoff with the AFC, NFC type setup, go to a 24 team. And the reason why is basically you create 12 teams on one side, 12 on the other, and then do like College World Series, college softball does in a double elimination. And basically the losers will flip to the other side of the bracket, play the losers, and then you have the winners play winners until you get one winner and one loser out of the elimination bracket, and then a best-of-3 series for the national championship like college baseball.
Could you
Fans
imagine?
love the College World Series.
I got you, Weston. Thank you for your call. Could you imagine going to Roger Goodell and saying, hey, why don't we do this with the NFL?
That's so not feasible to do in a sport where you have to have a week's rest. You can do this in baseball because you can play 5 consecutive games
You
in
need
baseball.
3 months to get it through the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a 12-month-long college football playoff.
Plus,
I
what
hear his
makes
point.
Football is that it's one game, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one game, and Ryan Tannehill sucked in the one game.
And that's why you didn't play for the Super Bowl.
You're better. Let's just say they play the next week. The Titans and the Bengals play the next week at Nissan Stadium. Who are you picking?
Bengals.
Ian.
What was the question again? I apologize.
Titans and Bengals play again a week after the Titans lost to the Bengals. Who wins?
That is a good question. Cincy.
See, I think it would have been the Titans. But guess what? It doesn't matter because you don't.
But I think the college football playoff should be you lose, you're out.
Yes, because that's football. Anything that is football playoff, you don't get to play again.
No.
That should be cemented as
not
like,
just because that's just how it is, but also because there's not enough time in the year to play several games in a playoff.
That should be 9-0 in any Supreme Court, including this one. Like, it should be 9-0 that football playoff means you lose, you're out. No matter what
in our
level.
Supreme
High
Court,
school,
it is 9-0.
High school, college, the NFL, the USFL.
There's just
the
no time to
XFL.
lose twice. There's not enough time.
Trevor, up next, his thoughts on all of this. Plus, I talked to an industry source, and I got some interesting stuff, especially as far as the ACC is concerned. I want to get Trevor's thoughts on that, and we'll do that next right here, Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
This is Phil Tomasino, and this is Smashville.
Cousins put it in front of the score. Tomasino lofts it in. 2-0 Nashville.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples, the working and learning store.
Winning this award is truly like winning the Super Bowl of car dealer awards for Mercedes-Benz.
Edwin Vickery, General Manager of Mercedes-Benz of Music City.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. You have to hit on all cylinders to win this award. You can strategize all you want. You got to still have the right tools, and our tools are our people.
Live the dream with 3-time Mercedes-Benz Best of the Best Award winner, Mercedes-Benz of Music City. Go to mbofmc.com.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill? You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% U.S.-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey Nashville, Trey Wingo here. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
I was so happy last week. I was on vacation. Titans season is right around the corner. Training camp is like 20 days away. Titan season's around the corner. I'm on vacation, having a great time, just enjoying myself. And then I see USC and UCLA are headed to the Big Ten. And then as you started to look at the dominoes, you realize, oh, no. And then I saw Kirk Herbstreit. It's going to be like the NFL, two conferences, the AFC and the NFC, and it's probably going to be however many, 24 teams or whatever, and the top 8 from each conference are going to go to the playoffs, and it's going to be expanded, and it's going to be this and that. And I just thought to myself, oh, no. Just like last time when everybody got rich with conference realignment, but we ruined basketball in the process, we're probably going to ruin the regular season of college football with this. But I'm sure some people will be happy and everybody will make their money, including Rutgers, who I don't think has done anything to grace the Big Ten with anything, but somehow they got a seat at the table 10 years ago and they're enjoying their steak dinner. Trevor Maddich joins us now, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, you played this sport. You cover this sport. You're one of the foremost experts at ESPN on this sport. Do you hate the scenario that we're looking with college football as much as I do?
I don't hate it. I think I'm a little nervous about how disruptive it's going to be. But the reason I don't hate it is because, first of all, it was inevitable. The only way to stop this from happening or something like it from happening would be to artificially suppress people's opportunities, both teams, conferences, and individual college football players. And I don't want to do that. So it's going to be hugely disruptive, but I don't hate it. I am very excited about some of the potential possibilities that could pop up that didn't exist before that will now, to kind of replace some of the things that a lot of people hate are going to be gone. But I don't hate it, but at the same time, I feel like I'm dancing through barbed wire barefoot, and you got to be real careful because things are going to be awfully crazy for a while.
Okay. I talked to a source who told me that the grant of rights in the ACC through 2036 is so strong and challenging it in court would be so risky that they don't see an ACC team being willing to do that. So while the SEC would probably love to go grab North Carolina, and I think if you take Carolina, you probably have to take Duke, and they would love to grab Virginia, and I'm sure that the Big Ten would love to grab either Florida State or Miami and would probably love to grab Clemson. I don't know if they can do this. The Big 12 is making their move to go get Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. That doesn't really move the needle for me much. The Pac-12, who knows? Trev, what do we make of the other 3 conferences right now?
Well, you mentioned the ACC in particular. I think contracts can be renegotiated. And one thing that I can be certain of happening, or at least as certain as I can be, is that in 2036, when the ACC grant of rights is up, if the conference forces everybody to stay, everybody who can leave will. And the ACC will no longer exist as a football conference unless they want to bring in Charlotte and, some teams like that. And because people will be so mad that the ACC held them to it when everybody else is making double and more, then I think you're going to see the ACC set themselves up for a nice continuity for the next 10, 12 years, 14 years, and then just be gone. Because if I'm Clemson, Florida State, Miami, those schools that you mentioned, and if the SEC expresses to me that, hey, we're playing long ball here, we want to bring you guys in as soon as your grant of rights allow it, whether it's a renegotiation or whether they just expire in 2036. If I'm those schools, there's nothing the ACC can tell me that'll get me to stay. And so I would be thinking that the ACC might not be as locked in for as long as a lot of people think, because it may be better for the ACC as a conference to negotiate an out for the teams that want to go at less of a penalty on the grant of rights. The teams that stay won't get as much of a penalty put into their coffers, but it's much more likely that more teams will stay and the ACC will exist going on after that. So I don't know what's going to happen with the ACC. I'm not as certain as some other people are. To me, the big thing here, Jared, is in terms of what happens to Notre Dame and the other conferences, really comes down to this. Does the expanded Big Ten and SEC move forward and create their own top-tier division where they have their own playoffs, like the AFC and NFC and their own version of the Super Bowl, where they have their own commissioner because now you've got teams that are more closely aligned in terms of their resources and their, philosophies, more closely certainly than all of division, the football bowl subdivision right now. You couldn't have a commissioner for that. It's too disparate. They would likely have a CBA, a collective bargaining with the players, where the players would get some form, not just of NIL expansion, but also of revenue sharing with the broadcast partners, all those different things. If they do that, then everybody else is left out, and nobody else besides those two conferences are going to have a claim to a national championship. They'll have their own playoff, but Notre Dame will be forced to join one of those conferences, and the others will be playing for the title of best of the rest. If they don't separate completely and go their own separate way with their own championship scenario, then for fans, there won't be a whole lot of difference except for some logos changed on some jerseys, and some opponents will be shaken up, some rivalries will be shaken up. But other than that, we still have a national playoff with maybe 12 teams, and everybody's still got access to it. So to me, the thing for fans to watch is, does it look like the expanded Big 12 and SEC will break off, form their own division outside of the NCAA with their own commissioner and their own playoff scenario? If that does not happen, then everybody's still involved. If that does happen, then nobody else is involved.
So I have a theory behind this. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. I think the bosses of college football are also your bosses, Trev. Like, I think that ESPN and Fox are both pushing this kind of in the same direction, and then whoever ends up with the rights to the playoff when the next rights agreement comes up, I think is going to be the one that calls all the shots on this. And I use ESPN as the example. We were talking about this before you came on, which was, if I'm ESPN, and I've looked at the college football TV ratings, and I know what this is all about. This is all about getting USC versus Ohio State on the schedule and getting, 13 million viewers to watch that regular season game. This is about getting, Texas versus Alabama and getting 15 million viewers to watch that kind of game. I get it. But what are you doing to the other games that you have, and especially the conference championship games that you have, if what you're saying happens? Because let's say the SEC and the Big Ten break off. So the SEC has, 6 slots in the playoff, and the Big Ten has the other 6 slots in the real playoff. Well, now you've ruined the Big Ten and the SEC championship games because both those teams are in the playoff. And the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, their championship games don't matter at all either. Well, that doesn't sound like it's a good idea. I know you're getting Ohio State versus USC, but you're just absolutely murdering the Pac-12 championship game, which has had some serious playoff ramifications over the year, Trev. That doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to me.
That's why before all this happened, and it may still be the case, why I like the 12-team playoff with automatic bids for each conference champion, because of that exactly. I mean, you might have a new coach, a young quarterback, some injuries, lose a couple of games early, and be completely out of the national discussion for the rest of the season before September's over. That happens every year to somebody, somewhere. And so to me, a lot of those teams are back in the mix if you allow for more access, like you're talking about, have, a multi-tier playoff in each of those 2 big Power 2 conferences now, if that's the way it works out. You're right. The winner of the conference championship game may end up with seeding benefits, much like in the NFL, but whether or not they get into the playoffs is a foregone conclusion. But what that does is it pushes the interest down farther. So those teams that might be 7th, 6th, 8th, they're in that vicinity, 5th, in a 6-team scenario like you mentioned. Fan bases there know that they still have a chance to get in. even though they've lost 2 games, 3 games, and they don't tune out. They keep watching because, guys, we can still make it in. We're healthy now. We're doing good. We're getting hot. And we can make it into the bottom of the playoff and still have a chance. So what you've done is you've diminished, in some ways, the conference championships from a standpoint of who gets into the playoff. But you elevate the interest for more teams that in November still have a chance to make that new dance. And as far as the conference championship goes, you can still maintain the value there from a playoff standpoint. Conference championship is always valuable, but you can still make the conference championship still have value with seeding. If Georgia and Alabama are playing for the SEC championship, they're both going to be in the playoff. But one of them is going to have home field advantage next time they play.
But Trev, you know as well as I do, and you've called these games before, even at the NFL, they want that last week of the year. They want one game like the Raiders versus the Chargers last year, where the winner goes on and the loser goes home, because those games rate so much better than, if the Packers beat the Vikings, then the Packers are the division winner and host at home, and the Vikings have to go to Dallas. As well as I do, the play into the play off is a much better, much more viewed than the other way around.
That's true, but then 2 weeks later, you've got exactly what you're talking about, the playoff where it's win or go home. So you're just delaying that by a week.
Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. This is what I'm going to ask Trev on the other side. What does he think is going to happen and what should happen? And we'll get to that coming up next, right here on 102.5 The Game.
Join 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and Newton Motor Group this summer to help kids in Middle Tennessee. We're teaming up with Souls for Souls to provide shoes to children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area for back to school. Our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. To help, go to thegamenashville.com/shoes. Let's do some good this summer. Newton Motor Group is a proud sponsor of Souls for Music City. Newton Motor Group, the best car deals in Nashville. Start at Newton. Visit thegamenashville.com/shoes.
Whether it's the news, the traffic, the weather, or your COVID-19 vaccinations, it's important to stay up to date. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Erectile dysfunction ruins sex, but it's more than that. It harms otherwise good relationships. It destroys marriages. It can cause depression and anxiety, and it can be extremely hard on a man's self-esteem. This is Kim for the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and if you're suffering with ED, if it's affecting you, I want you to know that if you're like most men, we can treat it and get you back to the man you used to be. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we're ED experts. Our protocols have success rates as high as 90%. We've successfully treated thousands of men in the Music City, and we have a variety of treatment options and treatment combinations that could have you performing like you haven't in years. You could even last up to an hour and experience great sex again that is satisfying for both you and your partner. In treating your health, expertise matters, so make an appointment today. Your initial appointment is only $99 and includes blood work and a medical consult. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra. Results vary.
This is a big month for some of our teammates at Cromwell Media. At 102.5, 106.3 The Game, producer Kenny Adams is celebrating a 10-year anniversary. Also at The Game, morning show producer Michelle Knezovic and part-time producer Nick Keyser are both crossing the 1-year mark. At 102.9 The Buzz, Eric Steele, our rock star evening host, and Andy Herron, a part-time host, have been with us for 8 years. We are Cromwell Media and proud of our employees who commit themselves to excellence every day. Want to join our team? Contact us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
Save big this 4th of July at Electronic Express. Get an LG 55-inch 4K TV for $399 or a Samsung black stainless washer dryer for $549 each. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department: computers, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture, mattresses, and more. Don't miss out on an Xbox S bundle for just $389 or an Acer laptop for $229. Shop in-store or online with up to 36 months free financing. Electronic Express. We make celebrations happen.
Darren McFarland.
That's the most personality I think I've heard.
Willie Donick.
Give me credit. I said it.
Chase McCabe.
I still talk to people outside of this building.
The DDC. Weekdays from 10 to 2.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
It's going to be the AFC and the NFC of college football. And you have, 4 divisions within each conference? You may have 2 or 3 divisions within each of these Big Ten and SEC conferences. And I think you'll see eventually them go to like a 12 or a 16-team playoff. And it's essentially going to be NFL football on Saturdays. I just think that's where this thing's headed before it's all said and done.
That was Herbie on the Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters. I hate that because what Herbie just said is not college football. It is not what at least college football has been. And people will tell me, well, you got to grow with the times, Jared. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think a lot of people like the Rose Bowl. It was a meaningless game last year, and 17 million people watched it. Trev, I have a simple question for you. What do you think is going to happen, the future of college football, and what do you think should happen as far as the future of college football is concerned?
Well, Jared, I'll start with should first. I'd really like to see the SEC and Big Ten kind of temper the expansion now and keep everybody involved in a playoff. I would love to see the negotiations restart for the 12-team playoff, give access to everybody around the country, and let the chips fall where they may. I would like to see that happen. What I think will happen is a continuation of self-interest, because what's been going on is conferences and individual schools have said, look, it is in our interest to move. It's in our interest to add. It's in our interest to deceive while we're in the process of doing that. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see. And so what I think will happen is I think the Big 12 and SEC will continue to pluck off the most viable schools that are still available. They'll move away from the NCAA. The NCAA won't be involved even in recruiting or academics with football with those 2 conferences. They'll be done. I think they will have their own commissioner, their own collective bargaining agreements with players, and I think they will form their own upper division. I think that is what's going to happen. For the teams that are not a part of that, I think in a lot of ways it's bad because they don't have access to the national championship, but very few teams really did have access to that national championship playoff anyway, right? And what this will do is create a whole new tier of playoff and championship possibilities that now makes itself available to teams that never had a chance before, because now the Alabamas, Ohio States, Georgias, all the rest of them are off in their own tier. And so other teams will have a much better chance to at least get into that. Think of it like March Madness versus the NIT. So what I think will happen is a completely
So you're going to tell me that we're going to have
tier.
Trevor, so you're going to tell me that we're going to be having, the Big 12 and the ACC essentially playing one AA football?
Yeah. It's still going to be watched. It's still going to be good football. And the inventory of games doesn't really expand that much. I mean, the playoff might get a little bit bigger. And in terms of the SEC and the Big 12, the Big 10 and all that. But overall, there's not going to be that many more games in the inventory for broadcast partners to put on the air or to stream.
Clemson versus William and Mary, 2 o'clock on ESPNU.
No, listen,
For the
Matt games
championship.
on ESPN on Tuesday and Wednesday nights get great ratings because people love to watch football. Well, there won't be all these extra Big 12 and SEC games to be thrown up on Tuesday night. It's the same amount of teams. And so unless they expand the regular season, there's not going to be really more games in the regular season. And so it'll still be that. Plus, we haven't seen the full effect, Jared, of what it might look like for streaming companies to come in and truly get into bidding wars. Because right now, Amazon Prime and Netflix and Disney Plus and Peacock and all the rest of them, what they have is original content that people binge watch and old content that people binge watch. If somebody goes out there and says, we're making a play for live sports because you can't binge watch live sports, that could be a big difference maker, and that could draw in more bidding. So we don't know what's going to happen. There's a finite number of games available. You got the SEC and the Big Ten, right? But then you've got, if they're locked up, you're going to have a bunch of people possibly bidding for the ACC and the Big 12 and what remains
Trevor,
of the Pac-12
that's
and the Mountain West and the rest of it. Why not?
That's what losers do. Like that's
No,
what,
that's not
that's
losing.
what
No.
baseball does. Baseball's like, hey, let's put Yankee playoff games on FS1. Would the NFL ever put a Dallas Cowboy playoff game on FS1?
If FS1 paid the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys, yeah.
No.
Yeah, listen, you give me the money and off we go. Remember when original content started being created on Netflix and on some of the streaming things? Big actors were going over there, and a lot of people thought, why is Kevin Spacey going over to do whatever that show was, House of Cards, right?
Sure.
Why is he doing that on some startup? Nobody owns that. Nobody watches it, whatever, because they were getting paid a lot of money, and it was good quality content, and the next thing you know, it became an avalanche. And so we don't know what that's going to look like going forward. It's just that we know that people love live football games, live college football games. And if we get the streaming companies start to really dive in, then even though they won't be in that top tier, the remaining tier in the FBS is still going to make more money than they did before, most likely, and they will still have good football to be shown. And so it's not like it's a consolation prize, although it kind of is. I'm not saying it's good necessarily. What I'm saying is that there's going to be opportunities for everybody. There might not be the opportunities you want, but the opportunities will be there.
I hope the NFL starts playing on Saturday if this is what happens. I swear to you. What you just laid out to me, Carolina constantly accuses me of hating college football. And
it's true.
I do think that where we're headed is about to push me over the edge.
Yeah, but how do you stop it, though, Jared? How do you stop it?
I don't know. I'll
Who's
tell you
be
what.
The one to say,
it's
okay,
Trev,
you're not going to sign with Netflix.
Trev, it's your bosses. They're the ones that, and I have a theory behind this, if you're okay with me going here, which is I think that there's a reason why on the Fox studio shows and the ESPN studio shows over the last week, they've dedicated 99.9% of their programming to Kevin Durant. And I think it's because they don't want ESPN and Fox people talking about how ridiculous what they're doing to college football is. But that's exactly what's happening, and I think ESPN's the one behind it. And I think that this is ESPN and Sankey that decided to take Texas and Oklahoma away from Fox, and then Fox got mad, so they got UCLA and USC, which is half ESPN, half not. But, I mean, it's really going to, it's going to go nuclear for the ACC
Jared,
and the other conferences.
Tell everybody, yeah, it will, you're right. Tell everybody what a Model T is for people that don't know.
It's an old car.
It's an old car. It was the first real successful mass production car back in the 1920s or whatever it was,
sure.
Right? And guess what? Technology improved. Companies came in, including Ford itself, and improved on it. So they ruined the Model T, didn't they? No, they made cars better. And so, yeah, some things are going to get ruined and pass away into the past, but other opportunities are going to show up, and things are going to be pretty cool. Now, college football can ruin itself, but not by maximizing its income potential. They can ruin itself by trying to maximize football income potential by moving away from what makes college football different from the NFL. If they go into a place where college football players don't really have to go to school, where they lose the connection between the universities and the student bodies and the players, they lose those things, then you'll be looking at college football turning into a better branded USFL. And I think that would not enhance their earning potential. So there are certain self-limitations that college football will need to make sure they maintain in order to maximize what's made college football great, even as they move away from some of the traditions of college football.
Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Do you think we're going to start kicking out of these teams that don't carry their weights, like Indiana, Rutgers, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Minnesota? Do you think Illinois, do you think we're going to kick them out, or do you think that they're safe?
I don't think they will just because of contracts, but I think if you look at the interest in it, you talk about the interest in who wins the conference championship, right? That there's interest there. Sure. There will be interest in the bottom tier of the playoff and who gets in at the very end. You create a whole nother level of macabre interest at the bottom if you have relegation, much like English Premier League soccer, where you've got the bottom two teams of one of the super conferences that are playing the last game of the year, and the loser gets bounced down to the MAC, and the MAC champion gets put up, right? There would be massive ratings on a game at the end of the season that nobody otherwise cares about. The question is, can they do it contractually? I'd love to see it, but I don't know that they can actually get away with it.
Boy, I tell you what, that'd be crazy if they kick Vandy out of the SEC. Trevor Maddich, as always, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, I know your heart's in the right place. I just hope you're wrong. I just hope you're wrong. You're right.
Help me out, Caroline.
I'm trying, Trev. I will carry this fight for the full 60 minutes. I promise you that.
Listen, if Louisville gets invited to the Big Ten, Jared will totally change his mind.
That's just not going to happen. Like, there's no way we're getting into the Big Ten, and there's no way we're getting into the SEC, and we're done. And I watched how the football thing, because we got to have Syracuse in the ACC because of New York. I watched how it ruined the best basketball conference that we had in America. And so everybody made their money, but we got screwed.
Still play against each other. You lose some of the rivalries. I missed the backyard brawl. That's coming back, and all of it comes back sometimes. But Cal and UCLA? Oh, boo, who?
Oklahoma, Nebraska?
Nebraska, Oklahoma football used to be appointment watching. It used to be good versus evil, right? And it went away, and it's sad. What? Who?
Well,
yeah,
I'll be really excited for my UCLA Illinois football games this year.
Oh, well, there you go. That's where
think about
that's where you're
USC,
focused.
Ohio State.
Yeah, the one game, which we could have had in the playoff anyway if USC would ever be any good. Oh, it's awful. Trevor Maddich, as always. Trev, appreciate you, bud.
Oh, man, I'm going to send a donation to Louisville. I feel bad for you now.
There you go. Trevor Maddich joining us on the program. I want to react to what Trevor said. I want to get your phones on it. 615-737-1025. I'm not mad at Trev, but I didn't like what I heard there. We'll get to that. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
You watch the game.
And he's going. Nobody's going to catch him. Derrick Henry, touchdown.
We talk the game.
I don't think it was a bad play, but he took out their goalie.
We are the game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Don't miss the deals at Mattress Firm's July 4th sale. Get a king bed for a queen price and save up to $500 on select mattresses.
Hey, I'm Matt Saggio. I moved to Nashville in 2008 and have seen this city grow each and every day. The entertainment industry is thriving, and it's exciting to work in. It's a lifestyle. I've been with Cromwell Media for almost 10 years now, and I'm proud to provide creative marketing ideas and develop solutions to help businesses grow and achieve their goals. Do you love helping people? Let's talk about you joining our team. Shoot us an email at together@cromwellmedia.com. That's together@cromwellmedia.com.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Hillside Medical Clinic. Is erectile dysfunction damaging your relationship? Are you sick of the pill and all the side effects? Well, welcome to the future. We have a major medical breakthrough. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most advanced form of wave therapy. Backed by 60 clinical studies, our technology uses pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. We've helped countless men get rid of their ED. But what is the true end result? Their relationship, even their lives, improve drastically. If you're ready to regain your love life, call us right now, and not only will the assessment and ultrasound be free, we'll also give you a gift that produces immediate results in the bedroom. It almost never fails. This is worth $550, and it's free to callers right now. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and experience what I call the happiness ripple effect. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now, 615-576-5000.
1025 The Game is teaming up with Newton Motor Group and Souls for Souls to provide shoes for children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area. With school coming back, our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. Please help however you can by going to thegamenashville.com/shoes. All donations go directly to Souls for Souls to give shoes to children in Middle Tennessee. thegamenashville.com/shoes.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators.
ESPN
1025 and 1063.
Terang, it's a high fly ball. The leading receiver.
Awesome game 7. Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
a Cromwell Media Station.
where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game. And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 1025 The Game. We're streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. I am bummed out.
You are bummed out. I
am bummed
progressively
out.
throughout the show, you're getting yourself more and more worked up.
So I don't know if it's the homer in me that realizes that, if we're going to have essentially 48 good conference teams, because we're going to 24 probably for the SEC, or 12 for the SEC, or 24 for the SEC, 24 for the Big Ten, and then everybody else isn't going to matter. Well, I look at my school, we have no chance of getting in the Big Ten, like maybe a 1% chance to get in the Big Ten, and a 0% chance to get in the SEC.
Probably fair.
And I've talked to different people about this stuff. It's funny because I talked to, I talked to Braden yesterday about it, and he was talking about how the TV markets don't matter anymore. And I'm like, well, if they don't matter, then that's good news for kind of the smaller sisters like Duke, but it's probably bad news for the TCUs and the Baylors. But then I've talked to other people who told me that the TV markets absolutely matter. Then it's like, well, Baylor and TCU should probably be safe, or at least one of them, because the Big Ten doesn't even have a team in Texas. And so the Big Ten probably going to have to get the best team in Texas, because you're going to need the best team in Texas. If you're going to have a super conference, you got to have a team in Texas.
Yeah.
You can't not have a team. This is football. You cannot have a team not in Texas. So Trevor just laid out what he thinks is going to happen, which is he thinks that the super conference is going to play for the real playoff and that they'll break away from the NCAA and they'll do their own thing. So I put a list together before I talked to some people about the ACC and how that grant of rights is no joke. Now, you can alter the contract or pay penalties, but
those penalties would be hefty.
You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
It was going to be $80 million for Texas and Oklahoma to break away from the Big 12 just 2 years early.
Yeah.
Picture 14 years early.
And you're giving away all of your rights. Yeah. So it just, you can't do it. But again, that was what Trevor said. And then the rest that, they'll still compete, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and the ACC, they'll still compete. They just won't compete at the same level as the other teams. And I said to Trevor, I'm like, so it's going to be like the 1AA football playoffs. I don't know. You ever find yourself at a sports bar on like a Saturday around 2 o'clock after the college football season is essentially over, and on ESPN2, they'll have South Dakota State playing James Madison in a 1AA game?
Uh-huh.
Is that what we're going to have Virginia Tech playing Oregon in a 1AA-like playoff game?
No, because if there are two super conferences, then Virginia Tech and Oregon will be involved in whatever super conference will be formed.
Virginia Tech probably won't, but Oregon absolutely will.
Absolutely will. But why do you think Virginia Tech won't?
So, all right. So this is what I did, and I was going to kind of save this for a little bit, but I kind of mapped out who I think is safe and who's not. And this is assuming that the ACC can get out of the grant of rights. Mm-hmm. Like, as of right now, we all know the SEC and the Big Ten teams, UCLA, USC, Texas, Oklahoma, they're all safe.
Yep.
Outside of that, I think Clemson's safe. I think Oregon's safe. I think Notre Dame is safe. I think Florida State is safe. And I think Washington is safe. I also think that Miami is safe. I think that North Carolina is safe. I think Virginia is safe. I think Duke is safe if North Carolina's safe. I think Kansas. I think basketball has to matter a little bit, right?
I would think that Virginia Tech's more safe than Virginia is.
Nah, Virginia is the state school. Virginia is like, and as far as splitting hairs here, I think Virginia is I think it's a public institution, but it's like it is the flagship university of. It's the flagship university
of the state of Virginia. Yes,
it's like the difference between in North Carolina and North Carolina State, who I also think might be safe. But that's the difference here.
But I also think it'll be interesting to see because, the two movements of teams has come in groups. So who is going to be de facto safe because they're grouped with another school.
So like Pittsburgh and Syracuse in the ACC from the Big East in 2011.
Right.
Yeah,
Or,
I
you
mean,
know,
so again,
USC is a more attractive property than UCLA, but UCLA came with USC, so UCLA is de facto safe.
I think that they got in on their own merits. That I think that they looked at it and said, if it would have been USC and Oregon that would have brought the money that USC and UCLA brought, then it would have been USC and Oregon.
But I have heard through the grapevine that Washington will not leave without Washington State, that Arizona will go with Arizona State.
You think Washington will really wait on Washington State? Because Washington to me is safe.
I'm not saying that's my opinion, that's what I heard.
I don't think Washington State is safe at all. The only
that is
school
why I've
left,
heard that those state schools will go together.
the only schools that I see where if you take this one, you have to take that one, is if you take Carolina.
You have to take Duke.
And Carolina is too big and too popular and too metropolitan to not take the state of North Carolina. You have to take Duke. Because while college basketball means very, very little in all of this, it does mean something. The Duke-Carolina game does mean something. Whereas, unfortunately, I don't think the Louisville-Kentucky game means anything. I just say this. I hate this. Like, I truly hate this. I truly hate.
What do you hate about it?
I hate the idea that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and the ACC, that they're going to be playing for a consolation championship.
Well, no, because I don't think that all three of those conferences are going to survive in a super conference era.
Well, so then, according to Trevor's model, you're going to have two good conferences and two little conferences?
I don't know. But I don't think that the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 will all exist because I think that at the end of all of this, all of the schools in one of three of those conferences or two of three of those conferences are all going to leave and join a super conference. I don't see a world with two super conferences in which Clemson and Florida State and Miami and UNC and Duke are not invited.
So here's the
You're
problem.
going to have a conference of 7 schools?
Here's the problem with this. The ACC is the hardest to break free. The ACC
with the contract
is right now, if the Big Ten and the SEC could go picking, they'd go right to Clemson, the two Florida schools, Duke and Carolina, and like West Virginia, they'd probably fit in there or something like that. But they would go crowbarring there, and then Oregon, Washington, and whatever. The problem with that is if you can't get into the ACC, then Oregon and Washington make sense to the Big Ten. Stanford probably makes sense to one of these conferences. And I know it sounds crazy that the SEC would have Stanford, but that's where we are now. Rick Neuheisel.
Geography doesn't matter.
Yeah, Rick Neuheisel said on my SiriusXM show yesterday that the SEC is going west of Austin, Texas, which is as far as where they are now. I mean, again, if you do that, though, there's still – so I just said 24 teams, and I included the ACC in this when I did this. Here were the teams that didn't make the cut, that did not end up in one of these conferences for one reason or another. Texas Tech, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Cal. I mean, Cal, that's the San Francisco market. That's the fourth biggest market in America. Cal, Oregon State, Washington State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Louisville, Wake Forest. So all of those, what are those teams going to do? And so what those teams are going to do is they're going to be left with the Cincinnatis and the BYUs and the crap bums, the ones that we don't watch now, that they're going to be stuck there. And so now we're going to get a bunch of Illinois football games in the division that does matter. And Vandy gets a seat at the table for having done nothing for the last 152 years of college football.
That's just how it is.
And they're going to get a seat at this table. And then you're going to have ESPN and whoever has the rights to the AAA college football that's going to be sitting there saying, hey, we got a big game this weekend, one AAA. It's Navy versus Utah. Like, no. I'll wait for Oklahoma, Alabama next week. That's what it's going to be.
Maybe so.
And I hate it. And I think the other thing, and this is going to be really hard for this audience to understand. I think everybody who roots for a team around here, for the most part, is feeling pretty about their team right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling great.
I mean, everybody's fine with it. Like, Yep, Super Conference, AFC, NFC, SEC, let's go.
I think that's a fair point because I read all of this and I'm more so intrigued than anything else because I know for certain there will
You're
never
safe.
be a super conference that does not involve LSU.
You're safe. But, again.
But I do go back to the conversation that we had about a year ago about Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, and I absolutely hated it.
I still hate it.
I hated it. I was kicking and screaming
Do you
about
still
it
hate it?
happening. Yeah. I don't like any of this because I don't like change, and I love college football, and I like the way that college football is, but it's changing, and my team's going to be included, so how much can I really hate it? But I remember talking about how I didn't think it was going to happen because I didn't want it to happen, and you kept saying it doesn't matter because rivalries can be remade. Rivalries are remade all the time, and I hated it because it affected my school. Now I feel like the tables have turned a little bit, and I'm telling you that rivalries can be remade, but you want to be stuck in this tradition and the Rose Bowl and all of these traditions that currently exist in college football because now your team doesn't have a seat at the table or it's affecting your team in maybe a negative way.
How many rivalries in college basketball still exist?
UNC Duke. I would say that's about it.
I mean, is that where we're like? That's where we're headed with college football. And for college basketball, everybody's making money in college basketball now. These coaches are making $9-10 million a year. And the tournament's only going to make more money. Like the NCAA basketball tournament, which is a whole other dynamic of this that I think we need to discuss.
That is an interesting element.
But the NCAA basketball tournament makes more money than it has. I mean, the viewership for the basketball Final Four this year, I think it was in the 20 millions. So that is the same level as Georgia-Alabama for the championship. I think Georgia-Alabama was 22 million, and I want to say Duke-Carolina in the semifinals. Now, it was Coach K's last game, so it was, definitely add some juice to that.
But also,
that was 20 million viewers on cable.
To that point, though, I would say that a college football playoff game always draws that many viewers, with probably a couple million here and there, regardless of who's playing. That was Duke and Carolina. That is the most storied blue blood college basketball rivalry that exists. So, it's Georgia-Alabama. Yeah, that's two really blue blood college football teams. But you throw in, Clemson, Ohio State, it still has as many viewers.
Do you think the Final Four, and I'm not talking about like a bubble Final Four or whatever. Do you think the Final Four, in any capacity, is ever going to do what the NBA did this past month? With the 14 and 12, what was the 12-2-5 average?
Maybe not even that much.
You think they're ever going to do a 12-2-5 average? 12 million viewers on average for game. Do you think the Final Four is ever going to draw 12 million viewers? I think the Final Four. Remember, if Duke Carolina had been on CBS, which it is, I think, 3 out of every 4 years, if Duke Carolina is on CBS for that game, you're talking 30 million viewers.
No, I don't think it'll ever hit 12.
So that's my whole point here is that's the one rivalry that really carries weight in basketball, but that basketball as a whole has just totally fallen apart. Conference tournaments don't mean anything anymore. I mean, it's a nightmare.
Unless you're a fan of your team. But to Trevor's point, I don't think that there's going to be any moves that aren't beneficial, at least financially. So they're not going to do stupid things that are going to lose them money.
Here's where I disagree with that. Because Trevor was at ESPN when they had the last round of expansion. Mm-hmm. Trevor's at ESPN now. ESPN and Fox to a lesser extent, but mainly ESPN. ESPN is pushing this, right? They're the ones that are pushing, and then Fox is pushing. But, I mean, don't you think ESPN got a lot wrong in the last round of conference realignment?
Which round of conference realignment are you talking about?
Rutgers to the Big Ten, Missouri to the SEC.
You could argue that they're not cultural fits or that they haven't really succeeded in those conferences.
But who gives a rat's ass about Rutgers?
Who's losing money because of it?
No, but again, baseball makes oodles of cash.
Okay.
Basketball makes oodles of cash.
How many people have stopped watching college football because Rutgers is in the Big Ten?
But
it doesn't matter.
This is my point. This is what's next. Basketball makes $2 billion a year on their TV contracts. Do you know what their evaluation, and again, I think all these valuations or whatever, this management group says the valuation, Forbes says the Cowboys is worth $4 billion, and really the Cowboys could be worth $10 billion. Who knows?
Right.
They said that the NBA TV ratings, and we talk all the time about the NBA TV ratings are bad. The NBA TV ratings now are worth $4 billion. Everybody's making money. Baseball is making money hand over fist. Baseball can't make enough money. We are not even actively trying to get a team in Nashville, and I'm pretty sure that we might get a team because baseball is so desperate to put a team here because they're all making so much money, and all these guys want to get in on baseball teams, so they need to add baseball teams. And that's my point. It's not about the money, but conference realignment I don't think was good for the fans. I do not think the last round of conference realignment was good for the fans, and I think the Longhorn Network was a complete failure.
Oh, I totally disagree. You don't think that conference realignment was good for Missouri and Texas A&M fans? They just got invitations to the most elite and most competitive
Missouri
conference.
fans won the Big Ten.
No, they did not.
Yeah, no, they won in the
Jerry,
Big Ten
do
now.
not tell me what they wanted. I lived in that state when it happened.
They
were thrilled about being in the SEC.
They want in the Big Ten right now. Missouri wants to be put in the Big Ten.
Why would they want to be put in the Big Ten?
I don't know. That's just what the Kansas City host, who's a Missouri fan, told me.
And why would they want to be out of the SEC where they're getting a their portion of a $3 billion deal that'll probably go up to maybe even $5 billion when Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC?
Because the contract has already been signed for the SEC. It hasn't been signed for the Big Ten. That's why. Because they were going to sign the deal with Fox, I believe, in March. And then all of a sudden, or maybe May, and then all of a sudden they stopped. And nobody knows why they stopped. And now we know why they stopped.
Yeah.
So that's why. All right, we'll get to your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The death of the real college football. I still think people will watch, but I just don't think. I mean, I think it's going to be like baseball, where they just took the money. Baseball just takes the money. And I think that's where we're headed. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, so we'll get to your phones on this next. Dinger Tuesday, that's right, baseball. Go yard all summer long with $5 Dinger Tuesdays on FanDuel Sportsbook. This season, all customers will get $5 for every home run hit by both teams when you place a $25 to hit a home run wager on a Tuesday MLB game. And the best part about Dinger Tuesday is even if your bet loses, FanDuel will pay you $5 for every home run hit. The Yankees are red hot. The Mets are playing the Reds. I got to believe the Mets are going to hit some home runs. So I would go with the Mets and the Reds. And Pete Alonso, I guess, pick him because he hits a lot of home runs. But there's going to be a lot of home runs hit in that game, I would assume. So what are you waiting for? Pick your home run hitter and turn big swings into big wins. There's no better place to bet America's pastime than on America's #1 sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. Head over to your FanDuel account and download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with the promo code JGM. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max bonus $25 and restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
At some point, it's a combination of who did you play and what does your skill set look like.
Get the best analysis of the big stories in the sports world with ESPN's Jason Fitz.
If you reach for a quarterback in the draft because you need one, you're going to set your franchise back 5 years.
Join Fitzy every Wednesday at 4:30. Presented by Blood Assurance. Jason Fitz.
I am 5'9.5"
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Houston Clinic Orthopedics at TriStar Summit offers world-class orthopedic care. The doctors at their Hermitage location specialize in general orthopedics, sports medicine, and hip and knee pain and injuries. Get back to enjoying life sooner. Schedule your appointment online at tn.houston.com. Conveniently located in the TriStar Summit Medical Center in Hermitage, right off I-40. When experience matters, trust Houston Clinic Orthopedics.
312 Pizza Company is Nashville's authentic Chicago pizzeria, and they're now hiring. Work for a family-owned business and be a part of their incredible team. 312 Pizza Company is hiring for all positions, including host, waitstaff, bartenders, cooks, and more. 312 Pizza Company offers health insurance and paid time off to full-time employees. Contact Kimberly at 615-730-7888 or email at contact@312pizzaco.com. 312 is an equal opportunity employer.
Stay cool this summer with AC Pro and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, get a $15 O'Reilly Auto Parts gift card after mail-in rebate with the purchase of select AC Pro ready-to-use refrigerant products that include a hose and gauge. Beat the heat before you hit the road with AC Pro at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Wendy's new Strawberry Frosty is here, so check your watch.
Is it Frosty time yet? It probably is. The hour hand would be on, I'm feeling snacky. And the minute hand would be on, relaxing with a rich, creamy strawberry Frosty on a summer day, just digging into that smooth, chilly deliciousness and vibing. You know, depending on what kind of watch you have. When it's time for Frosty time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Frosty and Classic Chocolate or New Strawberry.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
We want to hear from you.
Thanks for taking the call.
Join the conversation. Call or text at 615-737-1025. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN 1025 and 1063 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Coach Rick Neuheisel is our guest. I was told by somebody that Fox was basically in the room with the Big Ten when it came to USC and UCLA and making that decision. And I'm not shocked by that because I believe whoever foots the bill ultimately gets to make the major decisions with almost everything. And so I ask you as a coach what your thought is when the TV networks are the ones pushing these decisions.
Well, as I just said, content is king, right? And what sports offer are real-time content, which is the most attractive to advertisers, where you can't watch it, you tape it and watch it later that night because you're going to know the score, or you're going to be worried that you're going to know the score. So watching these things in real time is absolutely paramount, and that's why the advertisers flock to it. There is no question that the television people were influential in this decision, as they were when Jim Delaney took the Big Ten to Maryland and Rutgers. It wasn't because he loves the University of Maryland or Rutgers University. It was because he liked New York City and Washington, D.C. as television markets. Los Angeles is in the same category. So the idea that you're going to go from sea to shining sea television-wise is a very, very interesting one.
There you go. That was Coach Rick Neuheisel. And I was just thinking about this. College football wants to be more national than regional, right? Which is why, as much as we around here, SEC, the number one college football property in America is
Texas?
Nope.
USC?
Nope.
I don't know.
Ohio State. Ohio
Interesting.
State is the number one draw in college football. So we go, Alabama. Nope. It's Ohio State. Ohio State, Michigan is the number one game every year. Notre Dame is number two. So, again, that's great. And people in the South will watch college football. If USC and UCLA aren't very good and the Pac-12 is completely meaningless, how does anybody west of the country care about college football? And that just popped into my head.
And I don't really know if many people in the western part of the country really do care about college football.
You don't think people in Oregon care about college football?
They probably do. But I would say, as a whole, on the western, if you told me, or if you asked me, who do you think cares more about college football? The Southeast or the West? I think the answer is pretty obvious there.
Yeah, but you want to be more than the Southeast.
Yes.
You want to be around the country.
Yes.
So you need to get the whole country.
I don't really know what you're trying to get at here.
What I'm saying is that in order for this to be successful, that like the SEC is going to have to go pull some teams out in the West Coast.
And
then they're going to have to be good.
That's the plan.
And it's going to have to work. I did promise phone, so let's go right to them. 615-737-1025, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Josh in Murfreesboro texts in and says, what do you think about 3 conferences of 20 teams each? It still makes the ACC irrelevant eventually.
So this is what would happen if Notre Dame picks the ACC. And I do not know how tied in Notre Dame is to the grant of rights. I know that they are tied in on the grant of rights. I don't know how tied in. And here's the important part of the being tied in as far as Notre Dame is concerned, which is if Notre Dame is only tied in as far as Olympic sport revenue is concerned, then they will gladly pay that every year to the ACC as a penalty, and they will take their Big Ten or SEC money. In fact, they could probably get the conference to pay that money anyways, which is, okay, so for the next, 14 years? For the next 14 years or however long, we'll all make $65 million, and Notre Dame will technically make $72 million. It's just that whatever difference that is, was that 7? That extra $7 million is going to go pay off the debt to the ACC that they owe for their others. That's not that big of a deal. If the 5 ACC football games Notre Dame plays every year are tied into that grant of rights, then Notre Dame has to go to the ACC. And nobody has a copy of this grant of rights, and nobody's talking about it. In fact, there's one lawyer who in law school wrote a paper about the grant of rights when it was signed and was able to get his hands on it through an open records request, and he's got it. But his law firm will not allow him to speak on this topic because the law firm could be used as a firm if any of this were to ever get litigated.
Right.
So the law firm won't let him talk on it, so he can only speak in generalities. And so I don't know how tied in Notre Dame is. If 5 Notre Dame football games a year are tied in on this, then Notre Dame would have to go to the ACC, and then the ACC would have to expand, which would then essentially blow up the grant of rights. And to that point, you could go forward with the 3 super conferences, which I think would make sense from this standpoint. 1, you keep the best basketball property together, which is the ACC. 2, you've got more teams involved. You know, the Big Ten can get more Western, and the ACC and the SEC can get a little bit more Western. And then, you know, you can have some plucking here and there of some of these Midwest schools. The ACC would get a TCU or a Baylor because you got to get a Texas school in there. Whatever. That would be fine. The bigger issue, as far as I'm concerned, with all of this, if you were to do that, is then you've got 3 conferences that are on the eastern part of the country. And I still don't understand if that's like the right call. And I'm not sure if Fox would allow that to happen with what their role is. If you're ESPN and you owned all of it, then you would keep it the way it is. And you would make each conference championship game mean something so that all those games to get to the conference championship game are a big deal, and all those conference championship games are almost de facto playoff games, and you own all of them, and then you could stagger them all throughout the day, and then it really would be like, 4 weekends straight of playoff football, and you'd own it all.
And that I don't think that – I'm sure that's something that ESPN is thinking about in all of these changes and negotiations is how to make sure that the conference championships still matter.
There's no real answer to how to do that. Without talking yourself into it like Trevor was and about, well, you know, if we get this and we get, you know, that kind of thing. And
well, I mean, it completely depends on the future of the college football playoff. Because if there's 12 teams versus 16 teams, that's completely different.
Well, they're not paying to bring all these teams over and then letting the Big 12 get a team in there.
But 12 teams versus 16 teams is different.
They're not paying all this money to get Texas and USC and all of them in the big boy conference and then letting BYU sneak in.
But that's the difference between the college football expansion and not, or how much you expand. Or are there going to be 4 buys for conference champions, whether that's the Big 12 with BYU or whether that's the SEC with Texas and Alabama? I don't know what that looks like.
I've got 24 teams, you've got 24 teams, and we've got about 45 other teams that we could include or not. And we get to decide, you and I, about what we're going to do with the playoff. And all we care about is money. How many teams are getting in, 12 or 16?
16.
16! Are we letting any of the other 45 teams in there?
That's why there is a
No!
Why?
No! Because we want the money. We don't want to share the money with them. If we had the choice of keeping all the money or sharing the money with Robbie, Joe, Willie, Darren,
well,
Chase,
am I a
and Derek,
network or am I a
doing
conference
that?
or a school? Because that's a completely different
We're the
conversation.
conferences. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
we're
well,
the
if you're a
conferences.
network, then
we're not sharing the money.
You'll give an invitation to anyone.
Oh, yeah. Well, if I own their rights,
yeah.
But if I don't own their rights, I'm not interested in that. So I do want to get into this on the other side. 615-737-1025. I do want to get into this. I tried not to do like a whole, like, what would Floyd say? Because he used to get really, really mad whenever I would talk about, you know, so I would assume that he would think something. Oh, don't be putting words in my mouth. But, Ian, I don't know about you. When it came down that UCLA was going to the Big Ten, did you think of Floyd at all?
I think I mentioned this to Caroline and Adam last week going into the studio. We're like, man, I really wish Floyd were around to ask him about this.
So I'm going to tell you what I think he would say about this. Because there's very few things where I think I know what he would say. This is one of them. Like, another one is if he were to walk into the studio and you were to say to him, hey, the Titans got 9 sacks in a playoff game and lost to the Bengals, he'd be like, I just know he'd be shocked. He would say, how do you get 9 sacks in a playoff game and lose? Like, he would be absolutely floored. So I do have a thought on that, about what he would have said about this, and then we're right back to your phones. Fireball whiskey. I absolutely love Fireball whiskey because it goes down so smooth. That's right. I was just on vacation, and trust me, we had the Fireball a-flowing. There is no better way to celebrate holidays, and we got more coming up. And there's no better way to celebrate summers on the lake or hanging out with your friends or lake houses or beach houses or parties or what have you, a night out with your buddies, than with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. It goes down so smooth, and it tastes so great. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
They're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
and I-840,
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
there's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
If you suffer from joint pain, from arthritis, or an injury, you know the traditional treatments: pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
Signs First is the official sign company for 102.5 The Game. Go to sfnash.com.
Parman Tractor and Equipment is your one-stop tractor and equipment solution and Middle Tennessee's Link Belt and Takeuchi dealer. No matter how you're getting there, start with Parman Tractor and Equipment. Rent or purchase a track loader, mini excavator, large excavators for your job site, or something in between. Their service and parts team will get your work site up and running in no time. Parman Tractor and Equipment will come to you for service if needed. Visit ParmanTractor.com for more info. Your Middle Tennessee Link Belt and Takeuchi dealer, providing totally outrageous customer service.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN. Welcome into the DDC.
Stillman Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators.
Scores!
Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, Nashville, this is Eli Gold, voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
In days past, it would have been unthinkable that Cal and UCLA wouldn't be in the same conference. When they split to divisions in the Pac-12, North and South, the mandate was that Cal and Stanford would always have to play USC and UCLA. They were tied together. So that UCLA has left this is just an unthinkable thing, given what the dynamics were just 10 years ago.
There you go. That was Rick Neuheisel on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, hosted by me, which was fun. By the way, did you see the shout-out Linda Cohn gave me yesterday?
I did see that on your Instagram story. What was it about?
Kevin Durant take I had.
Oh, okay.
I was just like...
Linda Cohn is such a queen.
Linda Cohn was like, I don't really agree with anybody on this channel, but I like Jared Stillman. I was like, Linda... Salute.
Shouts out to Linda.
Because Linda's the GOAT.
Friend of
So
the show.
she's up there. So, shout out to Linda. But more importantly, I was thinking about this. Neuheisel went to UCLA and Neuheisel, coached at UCLA. He's a UCLA guy. And I had him on the show, and he was talking about how he was sad when he heard the news on Thursday. And UCLA is one of the haves. They're not one of the have-nots. And so I thought, as soon as this happened, I was like, oh, I'd love to bust Floyd's ass about this. And it sounds like, Ian, you kind of thought the same thing about how Floyd would have reacted to this.
Oh, yeah.
Ian brought it up to me on last week.
Most of the time, I try to avoid when people say, what do you think Floyd would have said? Because then, if it's something, especially with the Titans, he would have gotten really mad at the idea of me claiming something that I think he would have said is a fact about the Titans. He would have gotten really mad about that. So I try to avoid that. But I will say this. I think he would not like UCLA leaving the Pac-12. I mean, he played in the Pac-12. He played in the Rose Bowl for the national championship as a true freshman. I think that he would not like that. I think he would not like them not playing Cal. I think he would not like them playing, these crap bum teams in the Big Ten like Illinois and Rutgers and, whatever. I think, though, that he would probably say that this is the cost of doing business now in college football, that this is the reality of the situation. And I think he'd be all over the NC2A, as he would say. He would be all over the NCAA for having kind of screwed this up of not being able to organize college football. I mean, this has been a long time coming with the NCAA. Like, once the playoffs started, and it was like, this is the college football playoff, and it has nothing to do with the NCAA, I was always kind of wondering, so what's the NCAA's job with this? I mean, I see an NCAA logo on the actual football, but if it's not the NCAA championship, then what is? And so because the NCAA has not been the governing body, and the NCAA should have been the one to start the playoff, and they should have been the ones to take ownership of the playoff like they have with the basketball championship. But because they didn't do this, and because this Mark Emmert has run things worse probably than anybody in America and any commissioner, and that includes Rob Manfred in baseball, which is saying something. I think that the blame would be put on the NCAA for not being able to organize all of college football like this, and I think he would look at it like that. I think he would hate it. I mean, he would hate that UCLA is not playing out west, that they're not playing, those teams. But I think he'd say this is the cost of doing business now, as far as how college football is being played. And I can't say I disagree with it or hate it or whatever. I mean, like right now, for instance, if we got put in the SEC, we have no chance of getting put in the SEC. If we got put in the SEC, I'd be really happy, but we're not an SEC school. Like we're not, I mean, I guess like we're more SEC than Vanderbilt, but we're not actually like a true SEC school.
Vanderbilt fans will not like that.
Well, Vanderbilt fans
say that we were founding members of the SEC. We're more SEC than any of them.
Vanderbilt fans have to realize nobody gives a rat's ass about that except for you, and that we're in the business now of what Fox and ESPN care about matter, and Vanderbilt brings nothing to the table for Fox or ESPN. So, and right now, if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm holding on to the deck chairs of the boat because I'm worried I'm getting kicked off soon. Like, this might be Survivor, and if it's all about the money, eventually what they're going to do, they're going to include the Vandies because they need their votes and stuff right now, but then ultimately what they're going to do, if they break away to their own division like Trevor says, if they do that, they're going to get kicked out. Like, Rutgers is getting kicked out, and if this were Survivor, at least Rutgers pretends to bring a TV market with it, a major TV market with it. What's Vanderbilt bring?
They're really smart.
I don't care about that.
And that's what I said. But there were so many Vanderbilt fans, and there was a Big Ten fan that was calling in talking about how the Big Ten needs the Northwesterns of the Big Ten, and the SEC needs the Vanderbilts of the SEC to hoist the conference GPA.
So I did hear an athletic director told me this week, goes, the people who are making the decisions on this are the presidents. The presidents are making the decisions on this, and that is important, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they care that much. The Big Ten,
I think the money is just going to be too big to say no.
The Big Ten only would allow like certain academic schools into their conference, and then they let Nebraska in, who wasn't. The ACC only let certain academic conferences into their league, and then they let in Louisville, who wasn't. Hate to say this about the SEC, but look at the conference. Outside of Vanderbilt, it ain't the Ivy League.
No.
So, and Georgia. I mean, Georgia's a good school.
And Florida.
Texas is a good school. But I highly doubt Oklahoma is bringing in, the magna cum laude society. So, hate to break it to you, Vandy, but just be careful with all this because, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if ESPN or Fox can kick you out and put North Carolina in, they would. If they could kick you out and put North Carolina State in, they would. Like, if this were Survivor, and I don't watch a lot of Survivor. In fact, I've never watched Survivor.
I haven't either.
But I'm pretty sure with how this works, if we went around the campfire and we said who was out,
we can vote someone off the island.
I mean, if there's 14 people voting, it would be Vandy, 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 and Vandy would vote Mississippi State.
Probably fair.
There you go.
Yep.
Phone 615-737-1025. What do we have?
One texter texts in and says, can they force Vanderbilt and a lower tier SEC team out of the SEC?
We shall see. I mean, you can, in theory, kick a team out of the SEC. You have to have, I think it's like 12 of the 14 schools have to vote for it.
And I do think there is some sort of financial restitution that has to be paid by the conference.
Is it worth over, let's say, again, this is, a network thing, but Fox paid $400 million a year at a $200 million deficit to get the NFL because they felt like that was the important thing in order to build a network. So $400 million a year on a $200 million loss, essentially, is over 5 years $1 billion. So Fox was willing to eat $1 billion, basically, in order to start their network, in order to get the NFL.
And it paid off.
Would you kick out Vandy in order to bring in North Carolina and Duke, and you got to give Vanderbilt $150 million?
Well, I guess the counter question to that would be, what is the financial loss of keeping Vanderbilt, and what's stopping you from keeping Vanderbilt and also bringing in UNC and Duke?
And that's probably more of the reality.
We've got Alabama and Texas and
you need
Oklahoma,
their
Texas
vote.
A&M.
You need their
so
vote.
what's hurting
And-
us having Vandy?
And the league network games, like the games that people are going to watch, that's going to be on Fox, that's going to be on ABC, and that's going to be on main ESPN. The league network games, those are just going to be, crap bum versus crap bum. Like I used to always joke with Jordan Rogers that he's like the official television analyst of Tennessee football because I feel like that SEC primetime game of the week on the SEC network is always like Mississippi State, Tennessee.
Yeah, it's usually never the sexiest matchup.
Because
those games go to CBS
Here's
or
the
they
crazy
go
thing.
to the ABC primetime game.
I think that the SEC is going to demand that 3:30 time slot on ABC. So where they are now on CBS, they're going to want that just moved over to ABC. Does ESPN bring back Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler, who got paid a fortune to go to CBS at separate times, but to be the lead voices of the SEC? Or is Jordan Rogers getting the promotion in 2 years to the 2:30 CBS game, like the main SEC game every week?
I would say probably Jordan Rogers gets that promotion.
I wonder if
ESPN wants their own people.
I wonder if they're going to move Herbie into that role and then just have College Game Day at that SEC game every week.
That's usually what it is for the most part.
But what I hate, though, is that the tradition of College Game Day, it's really not, though, because the tradition of College Game Day is that College Game Day goes to the best game no matter what. So even if they don't have it, they still go, which is a big deal because Fox and CBS right now have a lot of really, really good games. So Herbie does a lot of, he goes to the CBS game to do game day and then gets on the plane and does the 7 o'clock ABC game.
Yeah.
Well, if they're going to own the SEC and have that game, would you not move your number one crew down to the SEC game at 3:30 or whatever? But then I still want game day at the best game. So if USC versus Ohio State is the best game, I traditionally want game day at the best game. But I know better than this. Fox's Brady Quinn kickoff show is going to go to whatever the big Fox game is, and College Game Day is going to go to the big ESPN game. And I hate that, but that's what's going to happen.
But I also think that they'll just keep Herb Street on that 7 o'clock ABC game and then have a new SEC crew. Or
so
just
then you
promote
just
with
put Jordan
from
Rogers
within
into that
for
one.
wherever that is. Yeah, because not having Herb Street on game day, I don't think is an option for ESPN.
No, I think game day is pretty important.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going down the pecking order, I think who's on game day is maybe now. Again, they put
that's what
Fowler,
I'm saying. I agree with you. It's not an
they
option
got
to
Fowler
not have.
off they got Fowler off a game day to do the game. So maybe the games are more important. I know the games bring in more money, obviously, than game day, but game day is. I mean, Herb Street on game day is a big freaking deal.
Yes.
All right, more of your phone 615-737-1025 right here on the program. Stillman and Company. It's 102.5 The Game.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
They're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
and I-840,
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
there's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
From Fox 17 News, this is a Code Red weather alert.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Heat index this afternoon, 105 to 110 with isolated storms possible. We do this for the rest of the week.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill? You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% U.S.-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
When Smashville wants to rock. We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Tennessee First Lady Maria Lee.
Every year, there are 20,000 children in Tennessee who have been abused or neglected. CASA volunteers provide crucial support in speaking up for these kids and supporting them in their search for a safe, loving, and permanent home. CASA volunteers can be the caring, consistent adult in a child's life who can make all the difference. To connect with a CASA program in your area, go to beforthechild.org.
Brought to you by Tennessee CASA in cooperation with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Robbie Stanley.
They get a lead in that game and just totally close the door.
Joe Rexroad.
If he plays next year, it's disastrous.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
So I just saw this tweet from Joel Klatt, who is the lead analyst on Fox.
Yeah.
For college football. Joel Klatt wants everybody to know, because I think most fans hate all this realignment stuff.
Yeah, for the most part.
Joel Klatt wants every single person to know, quote, "It's incredibly hard to see right now, in particular, if your team is outside the SEC or the Big Ten. But the long-term outlook for fans is a good one," Joel says. "We will look back on these times as the moves that shaped a better postseason, more quality non-conference games, and stronger governance. This is a great move," says Fox's analyst, after Fox is the one that's leading all of this. Shocker.
What does stronger governance even mean?
Well, the NCAA doesn't do anything, so...
Well, yeah, that's nothing new. Well, once NIL was passed, I mean, the NCAA essentially became obsolete. But I also think it's funny because every single change or every single move in college football is the end of college football as we know it. The transfer portal was the end of college football.
I'm going to stop you right there.
And Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC was the
I'm
end
going to
of
stop you
college
right
football.
there. Do not blame the players. The transfer portal and name, image, and likeness has nothing to do with any of this.
I am not blaming anybody.
No, but I've heard a lot of the ESPN and Fox analysts, because they're trying to deflect here.
Yeah.
And so the ESPN and Fox analysts have been doing a lot of, talking about how, the game's just so out of hand with the NIL and transfer portal. Not to us. Not to the fans. It didn't matter to the fans. Never mattered to the fans. I do want to share this story, and I want everybody's opinion on this. So, Ian, I need you to listen up on this one thing. So, I was on vacation last week, right? So, it was last day, and my family and I, we were checking out. Just, we were walking around the beach like everybody does, but we wanted to check out some of the other resorts and see what kind of pools they had. And, we liked our resort and we liked our pool and everything, but we want to see what everybody else's resort looked like. We want to see what everybody else's pool looked like. So we went a-looking, and we went from one resort over to another one. Not going to name the resorts, but it was a very nice resort that we walked over to. And we ordered a mimosa at the bar at this upscale resort. And so it was maybe 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Last day there, about to leave, about to go home. And the bartender comes up and says that the credit card machines are down. So can't take a credit card. Well, we're not staying at the resort that we're buying this mimosa from. And if we paid with U.S. cash, the only thing that they could give us would be the currency of where we were. So we all kind of looked like, hey, we don't want any Cayman Islands currency because we're leaving the Cayman Islands and we're not staying here, so we can't charge it to the room.
Right.
And we have a credit card, but your credit card machine's not working. So everybody just stood there for a second, and the guy was like, the bartender said, well, just come back and, come back later when the card machine's working. And we said, okay. And then
why would you come back later? That's silly.
Well, we couldn't come back later. We're leaving.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like that's on them.
Took a mimosa, but I felt like the bartender was kind of like, I can't tell you guys just go, but I'm telling you guys just go.
Yeah, I think that sounds more so on them, because if they should let everyone know, hey, this is the situation. If you're not staying here, it's going to be significantly more difficult for you to pay. But of course, they don't want to publicize that, because if they say, hey, it's going to be hard for you to give us money, then I would walk in there and order a few mimosas and say, oh, sorry, your credit card machine's broken. Right. So they don't want to publicize that.
So the card machine wasn't broken. It just wasn't up yet because it was right when the bar opened.
Oh, okay.
And so he was like,
whatever it is.
Yeah, the card machine's not ready right now. But
also get your card machine ready.
We didn't want any Cayman Islands dollars either. We had enough Cayman Islands dollars. We only had American cash, and we're not going back to the Cayman Islands anytime soon. So I don't know. Do you think it's fair or foul?
I think it's fair.
Because we did not pay for that mimosa.
I think that's more of a problem on them.
Ian?
Was it one total mimosa?
One mimosa.
If it wasn't one per person for 5 people, I think you're okay.
I think I've done more malicious things to...
Do you think the bartender was expecting us to come back when he said, just come back later?
No, that was probably his way of saying...
Yeah, I probably wouldn't expect him to come back.
Just get out, just go away, and open up a seat for somebody who is staying here, and we'll let bygones be bygones with your mimosa.
I think it was, we can't tell you just to walk off the property
but
with
wink,
this
wink,
free
nudge,
mimosa,
nudge.
But just take the mimosa. And that's what we did. But
do you feel guilty about it?
No, but I did say when it happened, I was like, we'll let the radio decide whether or not it was fair or foul.
And he was probably like, okay, whatever that means.
No, I didn't tell him that. I told my family that.
Okay.
That's it for us. We're out of here. We're back tomorrow at 2. Chase McCabe is rocking and rolling. That's next. Stillman & Company.